I think that the word salad stuff gets on my nerves. I think that some of the evasions are not necessary.
Focused a lot more on Donald Trump, I think it's fair to say, than she did on many specifics in terms of what she would do.
If her goal was to close the deal, they're not sure she did that.
The things that would concern me is when she doesn't want to answer a question, her habit is to kind of go to word salad city, and she did that on a couple of answers. One was on Israel. Anderson asked a direct question, would you be stronger on Israel than Trump? And there was a 7-minute answer, but none of it related to the question he was asking. And so, you know, on certain questions like that, on immigration, I thought she missed an opportunity because she would acknowledge no concerns about any of the administration's policies. And that's a mistake. Sometimes you have to concede things, and she didn't concede much. But I'll tell you something. John King mentioned Bill Clinton. No one's going to be Bill Clinton, but you do want to relate to the people in front of you. She didn't do a lot of that.
Listen, Kamala Harris participated in a one-person debate last night, and she lost.
That was my favorite quote at the end.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I mean, it was a good analysis also by Axelrod.
Yeah, I mean, he would know. He would know.
Yeah, he's been there. He's been there.
And I was listening the other day, and they made a really solid point that he needs a job in 2 years and 4 years. So he has to start being realistic. And if he was just carrying water for her, he'd be the laughing stock and he wouldn't get any work. So now he has to come out and be honest.
You talking about Axelrod?
Yeah, Axelrod.
Yeah. Well, who cares about Axelrod? But you're right. You're correct.
Well,
correct.
My point is that they're all coming out against her. Latest things, you mentioned the LA Times, that the owner refused to allow the endorsement. Did you see the editor resigned?
Yeah, she resigned, but I'll tell you something funny. Go ahead.
There's more.
Go ahead.
Washington Post refused to endorse now.
Oh, yeah,
and they're no longer going to endorse. And the editor-in-large just resigned. So good news.
Oh, that's beautiful. Boy, double barrel action in media there, in ink stain media, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Boy, they're just resigning in droves. You know, Bezos apparently put his foot on the gas.
Yep.
As did the Chinese doctor who owns the incredibly bizarre LA Times. You know, his daughter took over the paper, didn't even have a title for the past 3 years. He finally fired his own daughter, who was wandering around the hallways with no title, no job description, never hired, yelling at people to do what she said editorially. So that was bizarre. But this is finally, the guy's actually doing something. As was Jeff Bezos, I think, right?
Well, Bezos, I think, is probably quietly talking to Musk and the other billionaires who are all saying, no, this is over. We're going to Trump. And they're quietly putting the foot down.
Yeah.
Lancaster, Pennsylvania, suddenly is finding chicanery going on with voting.
Well, that's another story, but you're right. Yeah. You may want to take a look at that for a second. I don't know what's going on there. It's like phony mail-in ballots.
They found boxes apparently of problematic ballots. They said that it was a combination of, I guess, wrong addresses, duplicate handwriting, and things of that sort.
Wow, boy, that's bizarre.
Somebody else just got busted. FBI supposedly just busted a postal worker in Georgia for throwing out over 400.
Let me tell you something. That's a good story because there's a lot of vulnerabilities in the postal authority situation. They've endorsed her politically, which is bizarre for a government agency to come out.
I don't know how that works.
I never understood that one. That's bizarre, Eric. How does a government agency, unless it's the union of the postal workers, right? Or
for sure. By the way, we've got our guest here, but before we get too deep into it, we have a sponsor, so I want to run the sponsor, and that way it will be cleared out. Remember Event 201? Just before an election, Bill Gates, the World Economic Forum, and Johns Hopkins ran a pandemic simulation in October 2019. Months later, COVID hit. Well, here we go again. It's October. We're on the verge of a historic election, and at the recent bird flu summit, they announced a full-scale pandemic exercise coming October 21st in New York City. Their playbook is the same. Create chaos, bring back lockdowns, and perform medical tyranny. Wake up! This is their October surprise. Last time we were caught off guard. But now we have a proven solution to protect ourselves and our families. The Wellness Company created the medical emergency kit, and every home in America should have at least one of these. They're packed with life-saving meds like ivermectin, amoxicillin, and even a Z-Pack. And it's all backed by experts like Dr. Peter McCullough. Picture this. No more frantic searches for a doctor, no more emergency waiting rooms. Just a few clicks, and this kit is delivered to your front door. In times like these, having your own medical emergency kit is a necessity. Protect your family by preparing now. Get your kit by heading over to twc.health/Eric and use the code AUS to save $30. Don't wait until it's too late. Act now, take control, and ensure you're protected against whatever comes next. That's twc.health/Eric and use the code AUS to save $30 plus free shipping right now.
Whoa, that was dramatic, Hunley. Jesus Christ, you're scaring the shit out of me.
Hey,
I'm glad I've got my kit.
Yeah. When have the Dodgers played the Yankees in the World Series before?
Oh, there's been a few times. Yeah, there's been a few times.
I was trying to remember. Was it as Brooklyn or was it as LA?
Oh, no. As Brooklyn, it goes all the way back to 1941. I think we played them 1941, 47, 49, 52, 53, 55, 56, 63, 77, 78, 81, and now, Robert.
Wow.
I mean, there was a period of time where it was like every single year, and we would lose every single year and just weep in our oatmeal. Finally, in 1955, the year I was born, they won the World Series for the first time against the Yankees, and there was peace on earth and goodwill towards man in the borough of Brooklyn, the fourth largest city in America at the time.
Oh, wow. And they won in 81, isn't it? Is
81, they also won, and now we're back to 2024. The situation now is terrifying. I'm getting triggered. I'm getting PTSD. I mean, there's so many weird memories that go through my mind. 1963, beating them 4 straight, which was unbelievably devastating to the Yankee Empire. This is 1941, the two bat boys making faces at each other. That was probably the first time Yankees won that game 4-1. Then in 1947, Yankees took it in 4-3. It always went 7, Robert. And I think this series is going to go 7 also. Currently, the 2024. This is for you, Robert. This is Jackie Mitchell.
I know about this. Yeah.
This is for you because you're coming on. First of all, welcome to Robert Barnes. I never give him credit for coming on the show. It's unbelievable to have Robert Barnes on this show. Don't want to take it for granted. He's got a million other effing things he could do besides coming on our pitiful, stuck at 116,000 subs by the YouTube fascist empire. Thank you for coming on. I always love when you're on here. We just start. Sometimes we jump into it without giving any acknowledgement to Barnes, who's the busiest man in America and yet finds the time to come on our stinking little show. But getting back to Jackie Mitchell and the Chattanooga Lookouts, Robert, which here she is shaking Babe Ruth's hand. Jackie Mitchell, who in 1931 was a girl at the age of 17 who struck out Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig after that. I think struck out Tony Lazzeri. There's another Yankee she struck out. But she was on a AA team that Robert's familiar with at Engel Stadium, Robert. Joe Engel, who was the Barnum and Bailey of baseball. I think he worked for Griffith for the Washington Senators, which it later became a AA franchise, if I remember correctly. But she had learned a sinker ball from a cat named Dazzy Vance, who was a neighbor of hers I think in North Carolina or somewhere, and he taught her a sinker ball pitch. And in 1921, I think he was National League MVP as a pitcher, which is rare, also for the Brooklyn Dodgers. So there's a Dodger connection to the famous or infamous Chattanooga Lookouts featured right here.
Oh yeah, I mean that was a great. I grew up going to that stadium, a beautiful old stadium, had a big green wall, kind of like the Fenway Park, you know,
Yeah.
and it had the old kind, like people still put up the runs manually, you know, for each innings, you know, the old school seating. You could smoke cigars there back in the day.
It was a weird shaped stadium. I think it was 471 to center, and then short porches and right and left. The only guy ever to hit it out, from what I recall, was a guy named Harmon Killebrew, who later played for the Senators and the Twins. The people from Minnesota, of course, Killebrew is a legend up there, but he had enough power to get it out of that stadium. And also 42 was filmed there, if I remember correctly. The movie with the late Chaz Boseman.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. There's a and in fact, I mean, it's unfortunate now that the Lookouts moved to this like fancy, quasi fancy modern stadium up on a hill because they didn't want to maintain the cost of Engle Stadium. But I loved Engle Stadium. I mean, it was just classic, old school. You felt like you're walking back in time.
Yeah.
You know,
it was like wooden, Robert, or
oh yeah. The wooden seats that, you know, the hard kind you push up and down.
Right.
It was awesome.
Wow. They filmed it in I think 2012. The movie there. Yeah. Wow.
By the way, we did have a Jackie Mitchell episode on the channel. If anybody wants to check that out.
The girl who struck out Babe Ruth. Yeah, I tried many years ago to turn it into a movie here in Hollywood, but of course.
Oh, really?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'll give you a dirty little secret about the show. Half of these videos are failed movie pitches on my part.
But that's I mean, if you grew up in Chattanooga, you grew up on that story, but almost nobody else does.
I love the story. I actually loved to try to pitch it. I pitched it around town. Nobody would bite on it.
And Joe Engle is great. I mean, he did all kinds of crazy things, crazy giveaways, you know, elephants showing up at the stadium. I mean, you name it.
Yeah, he had elephants at the stadium. That's right. Yeah,
it was like, he was like, you know, the think Barnum and Bailey combined with like the Uber car salesman, and you had Joe Engle.
Right. Apparently, from what I remember, Griffith sent him out to look for a minor league affiliate, and he bought the goddamn team and then built the stadium, which was a state-of-the-art stadium for $150,000 in 1930 or 1931 or whatever the year was that they took it over. Built it from scratch, Engle.
Yeah, and you had like old school gates. I mean, you felt like you were walking back in time when you went to that park. You know, you get the little mini helmets, where you get the ice cream and stuff as a kid. You know,
I just got that down in Anaheim when I went to see the Dodgers play in Anaheim. I got a little helmet filled with ice cream. Now for this series, just for you, because you're a betting man, I know I'm seeing that the Dodgers are favored a little bit on the betting line, but that might be because of home field. I am going in another direction, Robert. I am taking the Yankees in 6, and that's just the betting side, not the emotional side.
Because of the injuries?
Yeah, the Dodger pitching staff is completely in tatters. That they're going to have to go with 2 complete bullpen games, which is unheard of. Every single pitcher has to pitch for you perfectly.
Well, so the Tigers, like the Tigers of this year recipe, right?
Yeah.
From August forward, they decided to scrap the starting, because there was even analytics people out there saying maybe this is a future model for baseball. It started with Tampa Bay a number of years ago, and the GM of the Dodgers came out of Tampa Bay, and they started this thing with an opener, and people thought it was the end of starting pitching, but it's super hard to navigate because of the fact that the game before, which people don't realize, that guy has got to go deep for the bullpen game to work. The guy before that, the actual starting human being, has to go deep into that game. And we've got these 2 guys, Yamamoto, who's coming off of injuries, and Flaherty coming off of injuries. And if they don't go deep, your bullpen game that you're depending on is now in jeopardy. So the stars have to line up perfectly, which they did against the Mets, where we beat the Mets for the first time since 1988, when
This photo was taken in 1988 of me in Shea Stadium, New York, right after we beat the Mets. Myself having a little laugh there at the expense of the 88 Mets. But now the long history of Dodgers Yankees, I mean, 77, 78, Reggie Jackson owning the Dodgers.
Oh, right. That's where he got the Mr. October reputation.
Mr. October, 3 home runs on 3 pitches from 3 different pitchers. And then also the throwing his hip into the ball on a double play when he was in the baseline, causing Tommy Lasorda to have a heart attack. Just really heads up baseball by Reggie Jackson during that World Series, both of them 77 and 78.
Was 81 the famous Kirk Gibson call shot?
That was 88 against Oakland. That was another shot. But the one in 77 was the Bronx is Burning, which is the documentary because the Son of Sam happened that summer. What's his name? The mayor, Abe Beame, he was told, Washington to New York drop dead. That was happening from Gerald Ford. The city went bankrupt. The Bronx was burning. It was just a whole mess of crazy crap going on in the city in 77.
The chat's going bonkers. No, chat, it's not a baseball episode. But if you keep at it, you're going to stir Mark up, and he'll talk about it twice as much. So,
who gives a shit about them? Who cares?
There you go.
Who gives a shit about them? Are you kidding me? Baseball is so America, and Robert knows this. If you want to understand America, as W.P. Kinsella said, you have to understand baseball. A recent black actor who recently passed away, who was in Field of Dreams, gives one of the best soliloquies in the history of acting. He later went on to, I guess, become Darth Vader in another role that he did. But I mean,
we watched it as one of the Viva Barnes movies a couple of weeks ago. Was the Field of Dreams film?
Field of Dreams, it really exemplifies the center of baseball is a father-son relationship, and that's why it's an American sport. Yeah. Field of Dreams is about his father, and that's what baseball is about. Baseball is a father-son sport, and that's why not everybody's involved in this sport unless you have that ritual, and that's why it's so deeply a family sport in American culture, and it's because of fathers and sons who have to pass it down to the son on how to do it. He plays catch with his father at the emotional epoch of the movie. I mean, that's the centerpiece of the movie. And as I said a couple of months ago, talking about Field of Dreams, when it first came out, certain amount of people went every day to see it. And I remember going to Lincoln Center to see it every day for a matinee. And in that darkness, there was about 25 men weeping in the dark, spread out throughout the theater, because it was about their dads.
Yeah,
very heavy film. Very heavy film.
Speaking of baseball nerds, there is a bridge. Nate Silver started out as a failed baseball nerd.
Moneyball.
Oh yeah,
Moneyball Nate?
Yeah, is he a sports picker now? I mean, what is?
Well, a lot of these data analytics guys that are in the political election modeling business, disproportionately came from baseball analytics.
Wow.
So going all the way back to in fact, Nate Silver called himself the Moneyball of politics.
Oh, that's right.
You mentioned the ego. You call yourself if you're the modern day Oakland A's, if you're going to be like the Las Vegas A's, that's what Nate Silver is. He's Moneyball.
He's Billy Bean. He could be the other Billy Bean who just passed away, the gay Billy Bean, not to be confused with the Brad Pitt character who was the general manager of the Oakland A's.
That's another random tangential connection.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, the Billy Bean in Moneyball says that he learned the importance of certain intangible elements when he himself was coming up as sort of the ideal guy, and he was next in the lineup to this little runty looking guy who was talking about how he was going to take this Hall of Famer yard when he was like in minor leagues, and of course he's talking about Lenny Dykstra, who would be a client of mine sporadically. Oh, speaking of which, this relates to both politics and sports. The recent passing of Pete Rose, about 10 years, well, maybe 15 years ago, I was going to be part of a baseball sports betting business, a sport selling sports picks.
Wow.
The two official sponsors were going to be Lenny Dykstra and Pete Rose. that they were going to be selling my baseball picks. I was going to be behind the scenes. Fell apart when Lenny wanted to be on the bank accounts at a time that was not a good idea.
Well, we just had on John Gross, who's representing a bunch of J6ers, and he is tight with Lenny Dykstra. And I think he's his rabbi. I think Lenny Dykstra converted to Judaism. Remember he was talking about Lenny Dykstra, Eric? I don't. He was his lawyer or his rabbi. Now he's both. He's a rabbi and a lawyer.
Didn't Lenny reach out to you after that?
I haven't spoken to Lenny Dykstra, but the guy, Pete Rose, of course, was, obviously addicted to gambling and cocaine and a million other things. I mean, he had a number of problems, Pete Rose.
He should have been in the Hall of Fame, is my take. What do you think?
Well, look, you don't know all the stories of Pete Rose. They had him on an FBI wiretap, and it wasn't about Pete Rose, Robert. It was about they were going after bookies, and guess who picked up the phone one day? It was Pete Rose. And that the FBI accidentally stumbled onto Pete Rose and contacted MLB. MLB confronted him with stuff that never went public, including what I just told you, and forced him out and wanted him to go to rehab. He wouldn't do it. Said he never bet on his team, but he rearranged the pitching rotation. There were subtle things that he did as a player manager to alter the betting line, Robert.
But even that, Ty Cobb's in the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? I mean, there's some people with some less than ideal off the field. I mean, as a player, he was still one of the greatest of all time.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. I'll tell you this: if Ty Cobb had bet on the game, he wouldn't have been in the Hall of Fame. There is one. True. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. There's one rule that is the golden rule in baseball, and Pete Rose violated it for better or for worse.
Dude, it's kind of like lawyers scamming clients out of money, right?
Yeah.
Well, does it still make sense when probably in 5 years, the LA Dodgers are going to be the FanDuel Dodgers? I mean, there's so more integration of betting with. I mean, I get it's still your own team, but I never heard any. So I guess there's plausible evidence, but I don't think there was any evidence he bet against his own team, right?
There's evidence that he did things to alter the betting line of his own team. So I mean,
he was
betting
trying to influence the odds,
right? So betting against them. I mean, how subtle and how many varieties of betting there are. So betting against your own team is like a generic statement. He altered rotations. He altered batting orders. He sold memorabilia that was phony to get more cocaine in the middle of poker games. I mean, there were nefarious things other than the betting that he had done to defame the game, Robert.
Sure, but Ty Cobb was a unique.
No, I know.
Well,
I know.
My view has always been if Ty Cobb's in the Hall of Fame, P. Rose can be in the Hall of Fame.
Okay, all right. Well, we lost Fernando.
Major League Baseball can put the caveat down there of something.
Right now, keep in mind, we lost Fernando this week, but also keep in mind that people forgot Ohtani's interpreter went to jail for gambling at the beginning of the season.
Now, Fernando wasn't the 81 like his breakout season.
Yeah, 81 was an unbelievable season for Fernando because that's when they beat the Yankees, and he was a rookie. He won Rookie of the Year. He won the Silver Slugger. He won the Cy Young Award, and I think World Series MVP, if I'm not mistaken. But I mean, I think he had a better year, and he died, I think, of kidney cancer because I saw him a month ago, and he was in emaciated shape. And nobody said anything. And he was just up in the booth. It wasn't about him. There was just the camera caught him in a glance. And I went, holy crap, what the hell happened there? And nobody mentioned it. And then he just passed away, right before the World Series. But I just want to tell you this just for a moment of a season that this guy had, which I thought was his best season. It was in 1986. He was 21-11. Pitched 269 innings, and he had 242 strikeouts. But here's the kicker. He had 20 complete games. He had 21 wins and completed 20 games. I'll just leave it at.
Why do you think Koufax could pitch on much shorter rest than pitchers these days?
It was just a tradition. I don't know. He put his elbow in pickle brine after every game. I don't know what that was about. Some homegrown episode.
Maybe it was the pickle brine. I mean,
it might have been the pickle.
3 days rest, bam, still do the same thing. Back again, bam, same. Whereas these days, almost nobody can do that.
Nobody can.
Even with all the steroids and everything else, they couldn't do it.
You're absolutely right. But my recommendation to you is Yankees in 6.
All right.
To make a long story short, Yankees in 6. But
When's the last time the Yankees won it?
That's a good 2001 or something. Hold on.
Wow. So it's been like 20 plus.
It's been 20
They
years.
seem to go on these streaks where they win a bunch of them and then they go on droughts.
Well, that's because you may have a bunch of guys under contract for a period of time at the peak of their career. That's
it's the Steinbrenner's kid own the Dodgers.
Yeah. I mean, as Reggie Jackson famously said about George Steinbrenner and Billy Martin, one's a liar and the other one's a convicted felon about the two guys, and he didn't like either one of them.
Well, I saw a documentary on what's his name, Yogi Berra. I guess he was like he had a real bitter break up with Steinbrenner, and so for a while wouldn't come back to the park. And
that's true.
He finally made amends at the end.
That is absolutely true. It is.
Hey,
and then
Phil
his
Lesh
son,
died, by the way.
Who?
Grateful Dead. Phil Lesh of the Grateful Dead just died.
The Grim Reaper, Eric Hunley with Death News, where he breaks in with his death story.
Well,
I know. I'm teasing you. I'm teasing you.
It's like if he mentioned somebody, you know what's coming. Hey, guess what we have?
I know. Well, this has happened before on the show, so it's not unusual. But yeah, Phil Lesh, one of the great bass players in the history of rock. I saw Phil Lesh perform many times, with the Dead. But that being said, there was something I was going to ask you about. It wasn't about baseball. It was about the idea that Trump could pardon Hunter Biden. I wanted to bounce that off you and see if that is something he's seriously considering, or
I think he is. It makes sense.
My view is, and I know some people in Trump camp who share this, that he needs to come in early with a bunch of pardons and use as an example. Or find examples that universalize the message of how lawfare got insane, because he's going to do it for the January 6th defendants.
Right.
And if he only does the January 6th defendants, the media will make it sound political and all the rest.
Right.
So that's where he needs to include as many news story type people as possible. Hunter Biden can be in that list. Leonard Peltier can be in that list.
Really?
Yeah.
Leonard Peltier. Interesting.
Yeah. It was throwing some big names in key constituencies. Like one of the big ones he should include is Bitcoin Jesus.
Bitcoin Jesus is on the short list?
Yeah. Well, here's why. So Bitcoin Jesus, he was named that, Roger Ver, because he was a big promoter of Bitcoin. He's an old school Bitcoin guy. So he spent a couple of years outing the intelligence community trying to infiltrate into the Bitcoin world. And they rewarded him by indicting him in one of the craziest tax cases I've ever seen. Like they're indicting him for owing taxes when he was no longer a U.S. citizen, for owing taxes on Bitcoin when they didn't even determine what Bitcoin was, for owing taxes when his own tax lawyer said there was no tax due and owing. I mean, insane stuff. Wow. But he became known as Bitcoin Jesus. And so he's prominent in the crypto community, and there's that aspect. He's being targeted for political reasons. It's a bogus, crazy, novel precedent-setting case where they're trying to figure out how they could use criminal cases to create new tax law. They want to impose a mass property tax on everybody, and that's why they're using the Bitcoin Jesus case partially to do that. But also, it's just the greatest name in the world, right?
That's a great name. That's a great name.
You're like, hey, I couldn't be there 2,000 years ago. I didn't have the opportunity to pardon Jesus, but I can pardon Bitcoin Jesus.
That's funny.
If you have Charlemagne the God, why not Bitcoin Jesus?
Yeah, exactly. Charlemagne the God, who seems very embittered, Charlemagne the God, at Anderson Cooper the other night. I mean, that was brutally harsh, picking on poor Anderson Cooper because he's not harsh enough on calling Trump a fascist often enough. Or I don't think they know what the definition of fascist is, Robert.
No,
the nationalization of industry. I mean, I don't think they understand what a fascist really is.
Well, it's like it's a 2016 script. And it didn't make any sense to bring it back in 2024. Right. What they needed as an October surprise was a positive one. A peace deal in Europe or Middle East, or at least something they could sell as that. The ceasefire at least. That could calm down some of the angst in various Democratic voting constituencies, or do something dramatic on the border. Some big put the army at the border, something that would dominate the news for a couple. That's pro-Harris. And the Trump cake is baked. You've already impeached him, indicted him, tried to imprison him, tried to kill him, tried to bankrupt him. There's no more negative news stories that are suddenly going to move people off Trump. That just shows you what happens when you have a bunch of 20-year-old. Brooklyn ain't what it used to be. Put it that way.
Yeah.
It's not like the Brooklyn when the Dodgers were there in their 50s. Now it's a bunch of
he groped a girl 30 years ago. Surely that should be breaking news, Robert.
Well, and that chick couldn't even figure out how to time it up right.
Well,
So
Epstein didn't even own the brownstone yet, right?
Exactly. They couldn't even double, basic levels of due diligence if you're going to run that scam.
Right.
But it's like all that stuff is baked in the cake. I remember
John Kelly. What about John Kelly from 2022 that's coming up this week?
All of that. It's just like anti-Trump stuff wasn't going to move the needle at all.
Right.
They needed pro-Harris.
Is it a Hail Mary? I mean, put it the other way. Is it a psychological Hail Mary, Robert?
But just go with the pro-Harris. If I was advising him, go with the pro-Harris one. That's the only thing that's going to move the needle.
Well, maybe they don't have the muscle for the pro-Harris one. In other words, if you're talking about peace in the Middle East, they may not have the muscle to move that needle.
Well, who's sabotaging that? Well, there's two problems. Her whole campaign is all idiots. It's like if you go around Brooklyn now, it's all like when they said they were soy boys. I didn't know what that really meant until I went, stayed in Brooklyn for a couple of days on a work trip there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, these people are they're all bone. They look like they're Ethiopian during a famine. I mean, it's unbelievable. But that's part of it. Those are the people running her campaign. They're utterly incompetent. Having 20-year-old social media girls run your campaign is a bad idea. But the other one is, this is why you don't replace Biden with Harris, because Biden has no incentive to get a peace deal done. He has no incentive to do anything on the wall. He doesn't. Right. He wants her to lose so that he can go around saying, "Hey, only I could beat Donald Trump. Barack Obama couldn't do it. Hillary Clinton couldn't do it. Kamala Harris couldn't do it. The entire Democratic Party couldn't do it. But I, Joe Biden, who they all made fun of when I was in 7th grade, said I was stupid.
That's when he was really stuttering back then, Robert.
That's because he was stupid. His mama was just trying to make him feel good."
All right. What about the Menendez brothers? You want them out now?
You want them out? Hey, do you think? Here's my question to you.
Yeah.
What are the odds? The Menendez brothers, who I think still had some resources.
Yep.
That's what got Gascon to suddenly deciding.
Of course, I've been saying this for 2 days. Netflix paid him through a cutout to do this deal for Netflix. I mean,
that's a smart scam. That's a smart way to do it. That's a sophisticated effort right there.
Absolutely. It's been done with the Black Dahlia. It was done with the Natalie Wood documentaries. There's a long history of Hollywood interfacing with LAPD to enhance product, Robert. And this is an old story in LA that nobody's hip to. This campaign is 33 points behind. For Netflix to all of a sudden do this and give him the money is not for his campaign. This is for his pocket. He will end up as a consultant on some Netflix documentary in the future, Robert.
That's a smart scam.
Yeah, it's a brilliant scam. Go ahead. Yeah.
I didn't think it was up to the DA to resentence somebody. I thought that was the judges.
It's the judge.
Just because Gascon wants it doesn't mean that the judges automatically will roll over and do it, or am I missing something?
Right. He already shopped it.
Yeah, and I assume they've already taken care of that.
He's already shopped the judge, Eric.
Well, you're missing the documentary that changed my opinion on Polanski's case. Because obviously
it's a great documentary, Robert.
Because it exposed, the judicial corruption plan. I was like, obviously there's issues with what Polanski was accused of.
We're talking about a documentary Robert and I like called Roman Polanski Wanted and Desired. And I hadn't seen it. I just saw it last week and I texted Robert about it. And a lot of it is about the DA and the defense attorney battling with Judge Lawrence Rittenband, this corrupt judge who is the model of everything Robert's been talking about, in my humble opinion, of judges. Am I correct, Robert?
Absolutely. I mean, it was complete. Whenever you think of Polanski, he was the victim of judicial corruption. That's really why he left. It isn't.
Well, it's also anti-Semitism, which is not played up in the movie.
Well, and I forgot they had basically blamed Polanski for a year for the death of his fiance before they figured out it was Charlie Manson.
Yeah,
that's a brutal number to put on a guy.
Yeah,
Yeah, but Tom O'Neill does have some sketchy ties with Polanski and what he was doing with her supposedly, and films that were with her. That it's and also Vladimir, whatever. The Polish guy who was also murdered had serious drug ties, and there was a lot of questions there. So Polanski wasn't completely clean, especially if you read Tom O'Neill Chaos.
Oh no! We're not. This particular movie, in this case, is about the DA and the defense attorney dealing with the judge. This particular movie,
right?
That's what. Right. Yeah, it has nothing to do with. Obviously, that's true. But the brilliance of this movie is that them teaming up, Robert. Right?
Yeah, well, yeah, yes. I mean, Polanski was definitely the victim of judicial corruption.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize he had been speaking of whatever other issues were there. So, yeah. I mean, before Charlie Manson, they basically made it suggest that Polanski was responsible for the murder of his pregnant fiance.
Absolutely. The judge, I think the judge said that
by the media for about a year. I didn't, that history has been sort of whitewashed from the whole Charlie Manson storyline.
He was also like one of the Trump judges because he was a media whore. He had a scrapbook that he showed people in his chambers of all his different celebrity cases that he had handled, from, I think, the Marlon Brando son's case, all these different celebrity cases that came into Santa Monica. But he milked this thing unending.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he was. I mean, so that's why there was always a complicated aspect to the Polanski storyline. Most people have focused on the crime he was accused of, understandably, right. But that's not justification for violating our justice system.
And he just settled a civil suit this week, by the way, with the victim.
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
So yeah, that was and forever the Swiss used it as. Now the other factor with Polanski that was unique was the Holocaust. Being right. Having the Holocaust. I mean, what a crazy life story.
It's a crazy life story. I mean, wow.
Brilliant director. A little bit crazy, but brilliant director.
Brilliant director. I mean, there's Jerzy Kosinski told me, the writer who wrote Being There, and he wrote Painted Bird and a bunch of other great novels that were turned into movies, later appeared as, I think, in Reds, where he portrayed one of the Soviet Politburo guys next to Stalin. But Kosinski, they lost his luggage. He was coming from Paris to have dinner the night of the Manson killings, and he got into JFK from Paris. They lost his luggage, or he would have been there that night.
Wow.
Because he was tight.
Well, I didn't even realize how much LA was kind of an open city pre-Charlie Manson. I didn't realize, you could just hang out at somebody's house in Malibu. You could just show up. It was kind of an open door kind of, because LA I was in, there's zero of that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Manson completely flipped that.
Well, it really completely flipped in 1977-78 with the Hillside Strangler with Kenneth Bianchi and his cousin Angelo Bono. That's when it really flipped, because they were operating out of Glendale, picking up chicks on the Sunset Strip, and then all of a sudden not picking up prostitutes anymore, picking up just regular girls. And it got crazy how many victims there were. So that was 78, and that was like the end of it. After that, for that period of 69 to 78 was still pretty wide open, where girls would hitchhike on the Strip and get picked up and had bad things happen to them. So yeah, it seemed to be, until Reagan took power, that seemed to put an end to all this crazy crap, Robert. Culturally.
Yeah, right.
Well, you also had a nice collection of serial killers in California.
Yeah,
throughout the 70s into the 80s, the Night Stalker. I mean, Edward Kemper. I mean, you can go on and on.
Yeah,
and on.
Ramirez was the thing about Ramirez was that these people were crazy. The thing about Buono and Bianchi worked for a security firm, and Buono had his own upscale car reupholstering business in Glendale and was revered. These were two stable, quote unquote, economically stable guys who did tons and tons of killing, throwing them naked out onto the sides of the road, hence the Hillside Strangler as moniker. These were the very two unusual serial killers, and there were no clues, because as one of the cops in the case said, we never had a crime scene. because they would fling them out of the cars to random hillsides, Robert. And
also, they were partners. Serial killers typically are lone wolf killers. They don't work together. So that screws it up too when they can always alibi back and forth. It confuses the situation.
Well, Bianchi will later turn against Buono in court. He will plead guilty to murder at the last minute, to 6 of them, and he gave 6 to his cousin, Angelo Buono.
And you had Ing too, as well, if I recall. Ing and his partner, another serial killer pair. Ing went to Canada. Ultimately, his partner chewed a cyanide tablet in the custody of the police. So there's lots of people.
See the chat. If we all write in Groubert Hunley, we may finally find out the truth behind the JFK assassination.
That's funny. Now, is Barron Trump the podcast ambassador for his father?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was talking to people out here in Vegas who know him. And he just got really wired over the past 3-4 years into sort of the same thing as sort of Gen Z in general. So a podcast world, big in the crypto world, that sort of overlapping space that sort of Kennedy occupied for a period of time. Trump witnessed it and then mirrored it after they united. And then Harris tried to piggyback on it a little bit, they called me daddy and all the rest. But they did. Now, is it tonight that Trump's on Rogan?
Today, he's recording today. By the way, on that note, Barnes, did you see there was a poll? I didn't get a chance to actually see the poll, but apparently Kamala Harris was seen on more podcasts than Trump temporarily. But the interesting result was 51% of the people who saw her on a podcast liked her less after the appearance versus 35% who liked her more, which I thought was kind of an amusing scenario versus Trump. Like J.D. Vance's appearance apparently on Theo Vaughn has gone bonkers with all the YouTube comments saying, everybody said this guy was crazy. This is the most normal MFer I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, exactly.
Who, Vaughn or Vance? Vaughn or Vance?
Vance. Vaughn's weird.
Vaughn's is funny. He
Yeah.
was like, man, it's so bad in this country, you can't even do cocaine.
Right.
That was some great. That guy is a funny guy. And he seems
He's
like a
very
real
funny,
redneck.
very
guy.
funny.
I don't know if he's actually a redneck background, but
yeah, he's a weird. He is redneck out of Louisiana.
Yeah.
He's got a weird upbringing too, because his father was, I think, 67 years old when he was born. So it's really weird. And he talked about how, he had to walk his father around like a grandfather and watch his health failing. And he was embarrassed to be around the kids. So, he grew up just dirt poor. Even like the counselors, how the kids, they get a counselor to go play baseball or whatever. He walked in and they were like laughing and making fun of him because they happened to see him out in the wild. It just really, really kind of a sad
which
background.
part of Louisiana?
I want to say like Beaumont, not Beaumont.
Shreveport?
Cajun country? Because it's so
It's pretty cool. It's Cajunish. I mean, if you listen to him, he's
Cajun
got that.
country. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Because that's the Acadians. They got kicked out of everywhere. They escaped France for religious persecution, went to Canada, then got persecuted there. And they tried to disperse them. They thought if they dispersed in the U.S., they would separate. Instead, they all got together.
Covington, Louisiana.
Okay. Where is that? That might be more central Louisiana. I'm trying. Or it could be up near oil country in the on the Texas border up in the, because you basically have the oil country in the west, northwest. You got populist Huey Long country in the middle. Then you got the Black Belt, Cotton Belt right along the Mississippi River. And then you go down, you got southwest, you got all Cajun country. You got the river parishes, which are their own animal, wide mixture of influences. Then you got New Orleans, also its own animal, because you have the Haitian influence, the French influence, the port towns with the Italians and the Irish. And then you go south, you got that unique parish that has a really, it's a big oil parish. It's
south central Louisiana, just nowhere.
Okay, yeah, that's old populous country. So that's not far from the river parishes, Cajun country, and Huey Long country, or a Long country. Wynn Parish voted socialist in 1912. The 18 because it out of protest. In 18 voted for Debs. in 1896, voted for the People's Party. That's the parish that Huey and Earl Long came from. The movie, probably the best. Most of the movies about the Longs are terrible. But
how's the one with John Goodman, by the way, Robert?
Complete crap because
it's not even on DVD. I tried to find it the other day. You can only get it on VHS, bro.
Yeah, it's not even good cinematically. It's based on, if you wanted to know how they would script Trump, talking about Trump fascists, go back to how they've treated all American populists, but Huey Long would be the best example. Everything they've said about Trump, they said about Huey Long. Yeah. Wants to be a dictator, wants to be a fascist, wants to be all.
Well, they shot both of them, so there's a
exactly.
Oh, here we go.
They impeached both of them.
Yeah.
40 minutes from New Orleans across the lake.
Okay,
was it shot? Yeah. Was it shot by a dentist, Robert? I forget.
Okay, that's a unique. That's unique.
That's Cajun. That's Cajun country.
It's a mixture. It's a little bit of everything right there. Because the lake is its own territory. I love New Orleans. I wanted to go to law school there. I wanted to go to LSU. Baton Rouge sucked. One of the most segregated cities ever been in.
Pistol Pete.
The buses don't travel after 7 p.m. I was like, screw this.
That's right.
And then New Orleans, Tulane wouldn't give me the money. I got more money out of Wisconsin. Probably good, because if I'd gone to law school in New Orleans, I missed most of my classes at Wisconsin. No way on God's green earth I would have gone to class in New Orleans. No. That they got the best food, best music, anywhere. I remember when I was a kid, younger there, when somebody was like, "Hey, can I smoke cigars?" And the guy's like, "Son, the only thing you can't do here is piss on the doors."
How about getting drive-through mixed drinks?
Exactly.
In New Orleans. First time I went there, I go, unbelievable. This is great. We're in a car, you drive through and get a mixed drink. Keep going.
New Orleans, North Carolina also has drive-through liquor stores. It's like literally it comes up over and you go drive down the middle and you just pick whatever you want. They were all set for COVID.
The best success of American populism at a statewide level was Louisiana. Huey Long was one of the only people to break through and that was the Rockefellers that ran the state. Standard Oil ran the state when he was coming up in the 20s and 30s. And Earl. Speaking of good, but the one film that was fair or decent was Blaze. Paul Newman plays Earl Long.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
That was good, and it's based on a book. I think a guy from Brooklyn, A.J. Liebling. Wrote a great little book on Earl Long.
He's got some streets named after him there, Liebling.
Liebling was old school writing. Yeah. You'd be like, imagine like a street savvy Matt Taibbi of the 1960s, 1950s. That was sort of those were guys when they could write both sports stories and political stories.
Well, his father, Mike Taibbi, was a street journalist for CBS News and for later for, I think, Channel 9. His father was always at every murder scene. Every time you put on the TV, there was Matt Taibbi's dad.
Interesting.
Yeah.
These guys just name a good political reporter these days who could also write a good sports story.
Well, the difference is that
George Plimpton and guys like that. We don't have almost anybody that can do that.
Well, Taibbi talked about that. How his dad, he was saying that journalism back then was a blue collar.
Absolutely,
business,
it was.
And now it's all elitist. Out of Columbia.
Yeah, you got to have a degree from some nonsense.
Well, we've been talking about Mark Halpern recently, who now has a new YouTube channel, and Mark Halpern's family, of course, which Eric and I explored the past couple of weeks because of Watergate. His brother David Halpern was a spy for ONI who stole documents out of Kissinger's briefcase and got caught, and then his father, Maurice Halpern, famously wrote the Pentagon Papers with Leslie Gelb. That's the background of Mark Halpern. It's really unusual, Robert.
When they Me Too'd him into being back to being an objective reporter.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. It's like they did the same thing to Cuomo. Look at Cuomo.
Yeah.
Cuomo's now like a reasonable guy.
Yeah.
Never was at CNN. It's because they sort of Me Too'd him into that environment. It's fascinating.
Well, what about Lemon? Because he trades off. Half of the time.
Lemon, I helped in getting.
I know.
Well, there's another guy we never heard from ever again out of North Carolina named Charlie Rose, who would interview the Bashar in Syria, and that was the end of his career. He was Me Too'd a couple of months after the interview.
I did like his show, that Charlie Rose, and that's how I got introduced to James Ellroy.
Dude, he had everyone on there. That was one of the greatest talk shows of all time.
because I was just tune in, and there's James Elroy in a unique voice of his, saying, if they had any balls, they would put my book in the history section. And some of the American tabloid trilogy, he was going on all this interpretation. Like, this is one unique guy. Old school. I mean, he actually lived that Black Dahlia story in part with his mom and all that. That's
right. There was another book that came out where the son of the cop came out with a book and a documentary. He was LAPD, so that reopened the case. They always get to reopen the case when there's some media surrounding a property regarding LAPD. All of a sudden, the Natalie Wood case got reopened when a documentary came out. That's what I was alluding to with the Netflix thing with Gascon.
It's not only LA though. I think that's
across the nation. This is Hollywood, Jake. This is Hollywood.
No, I know, but I'm just saying if you get a movie on a subject, it
much
does
easier in LA.
I'm just talking about LAPD.
I mean, if people want to dig into cases, for example, there were a lot of assault cases, even sometimes a homicide case, other case. All were getting processed through the robbery division at LA. Right. And so
homicide,
even if it was a rape case, it was going through the robbery division. In other words, cases that had no business in the robbery division were constantly being assigned to the robbery division because the robbery division was ahead of the bribery racket inside the LAPD. They were ahead of the extortion racket.
I knew this guy whose nickname was the Vons Shotgun Bandit, Robert, and he only robbed Vons with a shotgun under his trench coat, and he had a rig under there that swung the gun, but that was another issue. But he was in a Vons robbing them, and he said the layout was the same, which is why he went to all the different Vons supermarkets. And the hit squad showed up of LAPD. They had an execution squad back then for guys who were really hardcore convicts that they were pursuing. And he fled on foot and ended up in someone's house in East LA and converted them to being on his side, saying they were going to kill us all unless we get out of this together. Helicopters flying overhead, LAPD out front, and he successfully surrendered and then was sent to Folsom, where his cellmate turned out to be Danny Trejo, which is another story.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's two people for Trejo, because Trejo claimed that Charles Manson hypnotized him when he was in prison too.
Well, people do move around. I mean, they did move prisoners around, including Manson, who was in how many prisons? Sirhan's been in 5 California state prisons. So people do move.
Yeah,
it's not that unusual.
I mean, it's the most political and the most corrupt police department and prosecutorial services and criminal court judges are LA. You got political corruption out of New York and DC. You got old school corruption out of LA. Yeah,
this is old school financial corruption here. It's political in New York, like Robert keeps running into, and so does Trump. But out here, these judges are like, what kind of sentence is this? They shop around for judges. They do things that are head scratching, and they,
The judge, to give an example, they create business courts in California, to handle certain kinds of, really to be pro-corporate was the real guys. But there are a bunch of judges that angled to get on those courts because their goal was not to stay on those courts. Their goal was to serve certain repeat actors' business well, favor them in rulings for about 2 to 3 years, and then they would retire, become mediators and arbitrators, and those law firms would reward them by giving them huge deals. And so, I mean,
explain the arbitrators to me, because that seems to be crooked as all hell. When you go in, there's a retired judge, and I mean, do you suck up to him? I mean, I never know what you're supposed to do there.
They all know how to keep the scam going. That the way to keep arbitration going is to rule in favor of the big corporations. If you rule on behalf of ordinary people, the corporations will kill arbitration. They'll say, okay, no more arbitration agreements. We're not paying for it. We're not going to contractually require it. We're not going to do it, period. End of story. So everybody that's in that business knows they can line their pockets as long as the businesses and the corporations like it. So that's why they systematically favor them. And that the records are not transparent, contrary to what Supreme Court said in allowing this 30 years ago. There's no appeal rights. There are no rules of evidence or they're binding. No appellate. There's zero. I mean, it's the most corrupt bunch of whores I've ever dealt with in my life. Same with mediators. 90% of them are scam artists. They try to find who the weaker party is, and they go in and try to intimidate them. But because the courts greenlit it, it became a great way to eviscerate jury trial rights in America. And then lazy judges love it. And because it allows them to clear another case off the docket. And but it's become systematic to where they now are corrupting the courts because judges are angling for judicial positions solely for the purposes of bolstering their resume for post-judicial private employment by the people in front of them in court. I mean, it's like Congress. You know?
When did judges get the power to do the sentencing and take it away from juries, Robert?
They did that relatively early on. But it built up over time. But it was something that was not the case. Same with the law, right? Jurors used to be able to determine the law.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the Patrick Henry case is about the right to control sentencing and the right to determine the law. They took that away from juries slowly but steadily as well. So many of these things were done, a lot of them were only done at scale in the last century. Like you can find courts in cases that they weren't doing that 150, even as 100 years into the history of the country, somewhere in the country. But it's a history that's buried because no legal historian wants to talk about it. None of the law school people want to talk about it. None of the judges want to talk about it.
Wow. It's so dark. It's so dark, bro.
Well, it's also why they made up the entire history of the Civil Rights Act was targeted on state court judges. That was the number one target. State court judges were not following constitutional rights and remedies in the South. In fact, they're usually conspiring with law enforcement and private actors to strip people of their rights.
My beef with the Voting Rights Act has always been that they're giving preference to a group, whatever the group is, that votes 96% for one party. That's always been my beef with this Voting Rights Act. And then now it's been expanded, obviously, to cover any group you want. But even the original 1964 Voting Act, I had problems with, and it expands where you're giving free bus rides from the churches to the polls, souls to the polls, Robert, and all kinds of preferential treatment. If it was a 50-50 split, I wouldn't have a beef with it.
Though the primary beneficiary initially of the Voting Rights Act were poor working class whites in the Deep South.
Yeah.
Like that, the one of the things that's gotten missed over time because it's not convenient for certain racially interpreted histories is it was a class disempowerment by in the South. So to give my favorite example of this, from 1860 to 1900, Mississippi's population doubled, yet the people who were allowed to vote went down. And that isn't because slaves were voting in 1860.
Right.
That's how many poor and working class whites they completely disfranchised in Mississippi from 1900 to 1968.
Right.
So was that carpetbagging in essence what happened, or?
No, it was the populist movement. So the populist movement in the late 1880s, early 1890s united ex-slaves with small farmers, small merchants, working class whites, craftsmen, skilled workers, etc. And that terrified the banker, planter, Southern aristocracy. And so they went about disfranchising everybody other than middle and upper middle class whites. And because racial historians want to focus on race, they ignore that. They ignore that this was not mostly racially motivated, not mostly racially predicated. It was class predicated.
Right.
No better evidence of that than the disappearance of working class whites from Southern voter rolls. People like the Long machine of Louisiana, the Folsom machine of Alabama, they had to pay everybody's poll tax and get people on the rolls against the political machines that had disfranchised them systematically.
Did they try to strip away their gun right too? They were afraid.
Everybody across the board.
Yeah,
and again, it wasn't just blacks they were targeting. Poor working class whites systematically targeted.
Whites with hillbillies,
you name it.
Hillbillies with guns scared them, right, Robert?
Well, and any kind of power.
Yeah.
Voting power, gun power, financial power, property power, all of it undermined and sabotaged. And then forced into public schools away from any kind of homeschooling or cultural training.
LBJ famously used Box 13 to come up with extra votes during his race in Texas. And I'm talking about Raffensperger in particular, who made some statements yesterday and today about the overseas ballots, Robert. Is that the new Box 13 potentially in Georgia?
There's not enough of them. They did there were two major risks with that in terms of, one was getting those people registered was going to be difficult, and getting them to register in the state they wanted them to register, when that creates a bunch of tax complications for the individuals involved. A lot of these people that live overseas that are not registered purposefully don't choose a state that could cause them tax problems. Right. So the second aspect is the kind of voter who's a Democratic overseas voter is already registered to vote. The one that's not registered to vote is not a reliable Democratic voter. A lot of those are libertarian voters. A lot of those are don't want to pay tax voters. A lot of those are crypto voters. A lot of those are anti-system voters. That's why they're out of the country. And so it's like when they registered everybody automatically in a bunch of states, and it completely backfired on them all year, as Barris kept predicting it would, because it kept leading to Republican surges in registration. In fact, they were concerned with turnout operated. This came out in two different local jurisdictions, one in Wisconsin, one in Michigan. The Democrats were concerned, local Democrats were concerned about Harris's get out the vote operation. They said a lot of the people you're targeting probably aren't voting Harris. Even though they're demographically, you think they're for Harris, they're not, because these are the lower propensity voter that is disproportionately trending Trump, just like they found out in the registration.
Are you worried about the long count out of Michigan or Georgia?
Not so much.
Okay.
I know what the bigger concern is in any of those states is if it's close enough, then it's the mail-in voting risk.
Yeah,
that's still the predominant primary risk point. Yeah. And there, at least in Georgia, that they're going to have like 5% of the mail-in ballots they had in 2020. So in Georgia, they don't have nearly enough. The only
Did you see that they just the FBI just busted a postal person in Georgia for chucking election material, as they put it?
There was some arrest in Iowa. There was an announced case out of Pennsylvania, Lancaster County. That's Amish country, where somebody tried to fake register about 2,500 people's names.
Interesting.
The two main mechanisms, and there's organizations out there. I received an email from someone who was asking about this today, actually. But there are organizations that are very proactive on address checks and signature matches. Those are the two areas to watch. But those are only points of concern if the mail-in vote is substantial. The mail-in vote's only going to be substantial really in Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Nevada. And there, the problem in Arizona and Nevada is Republicans are absolutely dealt with. It's not Republicans surging. It's Democrats turnout is dropping off a cliff. So they're in serious, even John Ralston, huge lefty reporter here in Nevada, said at current pace, not only will Trump win Nevada, but they'll pick up House seats and Sam Brown might win the Senate seat in Nevada. And that's a Democrat. Kerry in Arizona, I think Trump will carry Kerry Lake across.
You think he's going to have coattails to overcome that lead by Gallego?
Yeah, I mean,
the lead has been shallow. The lead has been by Gallego has been consistent. Let me just put it that way. Whether it's accurate, I don't know, but it's been consistent, Robert.
In Arizona, well, two different things. One is if you go back and look at the last two cycles, 2016, 2020, look at the Senate races in those states and look at where they finished. And what you'll find is that the candidates almost always end up tracking very close to Trump. So Toomey was supposed to lose in 2016 in Pennsylvania. Johnson was supposed to lose to Feingold badly in Wisconsin in 2016. Bill Burr was supposed to lose in North Carolina in 2016. Instead, Trump carried them all across. And even though John James and McSally lost in Arizona and Michigan alike, they both finished almost within 2 points of Trump. What I found is that in the Trump era, Senate candidates, 80% of them will finish within 2 points of Trump's margin.
He's got a huge lead in Ohio. I mean, you're clearly saying that he's going to carry Moreno across the finish.
Oh, yeah, but Moreno's going to win with these. Moreno will win by 7 points or more.
Okay, but everybody else is predicting Brown right now, and Brown is.
Yeah, it's my favorite bet on the board.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're talking about the same election.
Yeah,
well, okay.
J.D. Vance was 50-50 a week out in 2022. He won by 7 points.
Right. So we have a race out here with speaking of slightly baseball again, Steve Garvey versus Adam Schiff.
He's not going to carry.
All he's done is sabotage himself on both sides, Garvey.
Yeah.
He's Schiff will slightly underperform. He'll probably get like 20. He'll probably win by 22, 23, 24 rather than 25, 26.
What about Virginia?
People don't like Schiff, not because Garvey's well liked.
Yeah,
Virginia keeps kind of bubbling up.
Virginia will be close in conversation within 3 points. That's your territory. So a big key will be what happens at Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach was one of those areas that trended very Biden in 2020 that I don't think is going to trend the same way this cycle. And then the black voters up in the Hamptons and those areas, those areas are going to have very low Democratic turnout, and Trump will do double digits better in margin than he did in 2020. That's why it's going to be so close. And then Appalachia is turning out higher than the suburbs in the central part of the state.
What can Trump do? We've been talking about this for a couple of weeks. What can Trump do about these television networks that are abusing their powers, Robert, regarding the FCC, regarding George Soros, regarding the purchase of 200 AM radio stations, regarding the licensing of television local networks? The Nixon administration, we covered this with Charles Colson, famously went after a Miami station owned by the Washington Post back in the day to put up a group to purchase that station, to stick it to the Washington Post. What could Trump legally do to combat these networks other than just outright suing them as an individual?
DOJ.
Yeah.
So a combination of election interference and improper and election, and there's some, it's not consistent, but there's some neutrality requirements for broadcast stations and advertising choice and other components under the FCC rules. So and then where big tech is complicit, antitrust. So I think it's a combination of those three.
But you can replace the FCC board members as president. You could put it right. So that 3-2 majority can flip, Robert.
No doubt. But I would escalate it to DOJ to look at it from a fraud perspective. People have to pay a monetary price, and individuals have to be at criminal exposure. Right. They've educated everybody about what will motivate them. How do they go after Trump?
What do you think about my nutty idea? What do you think about my nutty idea of a joint House and Senate media oversight committee?
You could, but the problem is, what will happen? They'll be co-opted like the Senate Intelligence Committee was. The Senate Intelligence.
Okay, but that took a while.
Oh, it did.
Okay, all right.
But I'm always.
I mean, they did get Adam Schiff off of there, so it wasn't completely corrupt.
That's true. Well, I'm for democratized remedies wherever possible, shifting power to something as local as conceivable. But in lieu thereof, and for that, antitrust is useful. Antitrust is useful. The fraud cases are useful. Monetary cases are useful, and certain criminal prosecutions. They've told the world what they fear is being bankrupted and going to prison, because that's how they went after Trump. So that's how they need to be gone after.
I completely agree. I mean, but he's got to put the pedal to the metal when he gets in there and not let these people off the hook, Robert. And that would come from an attorney general choice who you believe should be.
I think that's yet to be determined.
I'm asking for your pick.
The right people are in position to make those choices.
Okay,
that really is yet to be determined,
right? Because
there's a range of offices that's true of, but the people that are going to help make those recommendations to Trump are the right people. So that there'll be a drastic and dramatic improvement in Trump's second term.
Right.
Here's who you want to have the front-facing role. People that have little controversy in their public history, that are closet supporters of the sort of Trump populist agenda, that want the credit and will let somebody else do all the work, and let the real skill people be the appointed people underneath them that don't require Senate confirmation. Right. This is actually the Democratic script, right? Yeah. Mueller was the front guy. He wasn't going to do anything.
No, he was senile himself.
Correct. Yeah. It was Weissman and that.
It was Weissman. It was definitely Weissman.
Norm Eisen's been bragging about everybody, how he influenced it, how he was secretly running sessions, which, by the way, to me meant he confessed to a crime on live radio. And there need to be people like that. Bill Gates, George Soros, Norm Eisen, Weissman, Fauci. Big names need to be put under criminal prosecution.
Absolutely.
And that will.
Tell me about this insane case about Giuliani with these two fat black chicks down in Atlanta. What is the deal here? Is this an Alex Jones type case against?
That's all it is. They took the Alex Jones template and reapplied it, like they did to Trump, like they did to Rudy Giuliani, like they did on behalf of Dominion. It was the same script, and they get absurd verdicts. And until the courts step in and reverse the Alex Jones cases, these are just going to keep popping up everywhere with insane verdicts.
This verdict's insane. I mean, his apartment they want to take away, his grandfather's wristwatch.
I mean, how are these people harmed $150 million? They didn't even lose a job.
I don't understand how they were harmed. They were wheeling in briefcases of votes. I don't understand how this flipped.
It makes the American legal system laughable, is what this does. And the template case is Jones. If they would overturn the Jones case,
right,
then there would be a cascading
There'd
effect.
be a domino effect of these other cases
to stop all this nonsense.
Wow.
But once they allowed it for Jones, they were going to keep marching onward. And the liberal jurisdictions have no limits. That's why there needs to be criminal prosecutions of both state and federal judges.
Yeah.
There just have to be.
I agree.
There
I've
have
been
to be
saying this
certain
for a long
cases
time.
taken, because otherwise it won't deter.
And I'm not even talking about removal. They have to be incarcerated.
Absolutely.
You have to set some examples here.
Is a crook. I mean, there's no question. The New York judges were crooks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they are. The Austin judge that presided over Alex Jones's case, that's a crook.
Yeah.
These are people who deliberately, knowingly violated the constitutionally protected rights of an individual before them, weaponized their power for political, partisan, and personal profit purposes. I mean, that Austin judge that presided over the Jones case, not only did she literally have a film crew in there filming the entire trial, she went to the red carpet as a star. Can you imagine a judge walking the red carpet of a case she presided over? It's like the Polanski case times 10.
Yeah. Well, that's why the Polanski thing is so contemporary as a case, because it seems to be repeating itself now.
Barnes, one case that would help line. Now, I know you covered it, and I clipped actually off of Bourbon with Barnes for it, but it's still coming up over and over and over again. Can we talk about DOD Directive 524001? I don't know if Mark feels the same way. It looks like Bobby Kennedy is taking the other side of it. There seems to be a lot of confusion in the air.
So Ron Paul had an interpretation that he got from somebody else, and everybody.
Well, let's explain what it is, because not everybody knows what you're talking about, Robert.
Legally, what this is. So back when they passed the Patriot Act, there was concern about its impact on U.S. citizens. So the first effort to sort of calm public concerns was the Bush administration passed basically it's like an executive order, but it's a directive of the Defense Department to the Defense Department about chain of command of certain kind of decisions that can be made. They're not legally binding on the Defense Department. They're considered internal guideposts that can't be externally enforced. No one has quote unquote standing to do this, according to the government. But so as part of to calm down concerns, that they wrote the first and this number directive, that's the original one, and they've amended it over the years, saying here's how we're going to handle intelligence sources and information.
Mm-hmm.
So 2007 is the first version. 2016, Obama comes in and makes amendments. 2024, Biden comes in and makes amendments. In the amendments, there's reference, they're trying to limit intelligence sources working with local and state law enforcement for whatever reason. Maybe that's a good reason, maybe it's a bad reason. In it, they highlight that if you're someone that has legal lethal force authority, that you cannot work with local or state law enforcement unless the Secretary of Defense personally authorizes it. That got interpreted into government. Biden authorizes military to kill Americans. It's just a completely wrong interpretation. God bless Ron Paul. God bless Alex Jones.
The timing of it may have influenced. The timing may have influenced the interpretation.
Yeah, that's why. And it's deserved skepticism. What I think people should be looking at is something opposite.
You're talking about September 27th. This came out.
Correct. Why is the Biden administration trying to prohibit anybody that's listed as an intelligence source from working with state and local law enforcement? What is people got it twisted to focus on something that's actually not the real problem. The real problem is, why are they trying to use something that's about intelligence to suddenly revoke the ability of Border Patrol? I mean, who is it that has lethal force authority? It's not everybody in the government. No. It's Border Patrol people. It's people at the FBI, at the street, your lower level office level. It's those people. They don't want those people under the guise that they're an intelligence source for at some level who has lethal force authority. That's who they don't want helping local and state government. And it was why. And that would apply to any case. That would apply to human trafficking cases, for example. That would revoke the ability to have federal support in many of those cases, because many of those people are considered intelligence sources under the very broad interpretation of the directive.
That is
so
broad.
People got focused one area when it really was over here.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
But, credit to, that's where I almost wonder whether someone deliberately interpreted it the wrong way so people would miss the real story.
As a type of false flag, Robert? Or
Yeah. A classic disinformation.
Yeah.
I remember when I first talked to Jones, like for all the things he was extremely well aware of, he was not that well aware of the methodologies of COINTELPRO. And I was like, you got to study that. Because you won't know how the government's going to sow disinformation in your camp unless you understand what their modes are. Going back to Mark Felt, the real deep throat, who was in fact deep state.
Well, some people think that we have a different take on.
You like Alexander Haig?
It's not just me liking it. There's a guy named John Dean who wrote a book about Alexander Haig being deep throat. I'm not alone here, and we're going to do an episode on Alexander Haig being deep throat.
But all of Watergate is really due to John Dean wanting to protect his whore wife's reputation.
Yeah. Well, he is sued and backed down on every lawsuit he's ever attempted, including.
It'd be a fun question to ask him. Like if I ever got in a debate with him, I was like, what was it like to have a whore for a wife? Just curious.
Well, Jeff Shepard, who was Nixon's attorney, who we've had on the show, was supposed to be on a panel with John Dean at the Nixon Library, and they removed Jeff Shepard so they wouldn't lose John Dean, who refused to be on the panel with Jeff Shepard because of what you're describing. Yeah. So I don't know. He's not a conspiracy guy. He doesn't really believe in the White House call girl ring, which has been super well established. I mean, this thing, is beyond review at this point. I mean, they had that call girl ring in the next building.
Are they disputing that?
Some of the Nixon people who are old school have disputed it. Some of them, not the revisionists, not Houghton, and clearly not the silent coup authors. And there's people past 1980 when various new revisions of Watergate came out really dug into this subject and super well documented, super well footnoted. Kolodny was one of them. He wrote a book called Silent Coup. And then Jim Houghton, who did Spooks and Secret Agenda, are really the two books. Silent Coup and Secret Agenda, the two main books in that subject area.
To the degree Mark Felt was at some level complicit.
I mean, no, there's no doubt about it. He's clearly a source, and in fact, they try to wait him out. There's a book called Postgate that I highly recommend about the complicity of the Washington Post as an organization in the cover-up of Watergate. That was written by the lawyer of Mark Felt, who was the family attorney who got screwed over by Bob Woodward and Bradley and the Washington Post. They were just waiting for Felt to die. They did not want him to become a whistleblower at the end of his life.
Isn't it amazing that he got Nixon to recommend his pardon to Reagan? Felt.
I mean, what's even crazier? How about crazier is Nixon testifying on his behalf as a character witness in his trial, Robert? The president of the United States shows up.
Wow.
And you're deep throat.
Yeah. I mean, what guts. I mean, it shows you who these people are. That he was just so accustomed to being above the law.
Yep.
That he was
he was a black bag expert, but really William Sullivan was much more than him. And the guy before William Sullivan, lower down the chain of command out in Arizona in the Southwest, was a guy named G. Gordon Liddy.
Oh, yeah.
He was their black bag expert.
One wild guy, man. Though your history of him was crazy. I didn't know about the whole New York connection, university connection.
Yeah, just because I happen to be there. I mean, the Bard connection is legendary, you know, and it's even incorporated into Bob Dylan's lyrics, you know, was Sarah was going there, who became his wife, that Dylan crossed paths with Liddy at that time. So he incorporated some of his words into the music. But Liddy, yeah, he was, Dutchess County assistant district attorney and raided both Vasa and Bard on numerous occasions for drug bust and was foiled. At one time locked in the back of a girl's car. They had to crowbar the trunk open to let the DA out.
Wow.
Yeah. But
still a badass
he's still a badass, and he was the only non-CIA person involved in the operation. He was the only guy who was legit, quote unquote, of CIA people. And
he loved to do that hand over a flame and the routine.
He was on Fear Factor. Barnes, did you see that?
That makes sense. That's like
with Rogan or with
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, no, it was Joe Rogan. Yeah. But I mean,
you can make that if you want to do clickbait, Eric. You could do the when you put this whole video out. What's the Watergate connection to Joe Rogan?
I actually did the little video in the intro of our Liddy episode, but or somewhere in there, but it was hilarious because Liddy's like in his 60s and he's sitting there in this claustrophobic tank just chilling out. It's like, yeah, whatever, taking a nap. And everybody else is like, all these 20-something muscle band are freaking out, and he's just laughing.
Well, the most fascinating guy that we did the 3-part episode on is E. Howard Hunt, because he wins a Guggenheim Fellowship, goes to Mexico to work on a novel. He writes 75 books, having nothing to do with anything. He is the most fascinating of the whole group, Robert.
Him and Frank. I mean, Frank shows up in so many places. Frank Sturgis.
Oh, Sturgis, yeah. Well, he said Sturgis was as dumb as a bag of rocks.
Maybe, but somehow he ends up hanging out with Fidel, and
they ended up
things with the mob.
He was more of a muscle guy, from what I understand.
But he's like he must have had some personal sociability because he managed to blend into places. Like he even shows up with Yasser Arafat. Morocco.
Yeah, no. He was a friendly Italian. He was an Italian guy, Frank Fiorini. Very, very extroverted, very Italian, warm, friendly. Ends up being Hunt's cellmate in Danbury.
Didn't he have like a bar or club not far from where Eric is in Virginia?
Yes, that is true. He had
in
a couple
Norfolk,
of
actually, literally the next town over.
Have you gone? Is it still there?
I haven't even looked.
You got to do that. That'd be fascinating if it's still there.
Good point.
Like, what about that Dallas club that well, there are several of them. But
the Campese Lounge.
Yeah, is that still there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We ate there the last time I was in Dallas. Yeah.
Wow, fascinating.
Yeah, no, that's like stuck in time. That you
what
could
about
sit
Jack Ruby's place? Is that there?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. The Carousel Club's not there any longer, but Campese's.
Well, what about the place the Secret Service guys got drunk?
Yeah, what about that one?
Oh, that place. I don't think. Oh no, that is still there. It is still there. Yeah.
That would be fascinating.
Yeah.
It wasn't there one where George Carlin was doing his routines like a couple of nights before.
That was the place. Yeah. The only reason I know that is because Carlin told me that. That story's not anywhere. George Carlin told me that story. That he was doing Kennedy impersonations and they thought that Kennedy was actually in the club. Yeah, that's in Fort Worth. But okay, so where are we now in this election? I mean, I see that he surged ahead nationally on this latest Times Siena College poll, which 3 or 4 weeks ago had her. It's like a 4-point flip, right, Robert?
Well, more than that, really. So, if
you take this poll to be accurate nationally,
the polls are pretty close to projecting what I had back in July, end of July. Right after the Harris switch. So I had Trump winning, went on with Barris, made predictions as to the vote totals, vote margins, electoral college margin, you name it. And my prediction was that Trump would win by 2 points. And
you're talking about the national vote,
national
vote.
Vote. And would win at least 312 electoral votes. And I would say that he could pick off some prizes here or there, and I had him winning by more than 100 electoral votes, 319 electoral votes. I thought was where I thought would ultimately end up. The national polls basically have a tie currently. So some have Trump up 2-3, some have Harris up 2-3. You average them all out. The New York Times today, Trump up 1. The headline is misleading because they put a different, the actual full ballot is Trump plus 1. The CNN. Trump tied, and these are similar.
But these are 4-point flips; they're not really tied.
Well, yeah. Not only that, if you compare the same pollster from 2020, Trump is running about 9 points better in amongst the same pollsters than he was in 2020. And
by the way, I recommend everybody watch What Are the Odds. I think you're going to keep doing it to the election, right, Robert?
We'll have 2 more episodes.
2 more episodes if you can catch
Monday
them.
And the Monday before election.
Right. I mean, I've been watching it every week. It's the best political show on YouTube in terms of inside the numbers type of analysis and polling and everything else that Rich comes up with Robert. So I highly recommend if you could see the last 2, you may get a clearer picture of where we are election-wise.
Are you doing it election night, Barnes?
No. I don't know. I'm not sure. There's a bunch of things that have to happen on election night, on election day, so I might be distracted. So I'll try to make myself available at different people, different places, but it's going to be a live night in terms of betting on it.
You think?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the only election season I've ever lost money on is 2022. Made money on 2020.
Right.
And the odds, the bets I put out with Richard in 2020 cashed all over the place. Though Trump didn't win the Electoral College,
Right.
Trump beat the margin of victory in a whole bunch of states. One states that he was still the underdog to win, and then the Senate, a bunch of Senate races went the way I thought they would, and a bunch of House races.
Well, tell me what you're seeing now. You're seeing Tester losing. You're seeing Brown going down. Is that the only two, or do you see?
Oh, no, I think it could be a huge sweep night.
Oh,
so
interesting.
like the odds coming in were that Republicans would pick up 1 to 2.
That's what I'm hearing. Right. Yeah.
That Democrats would take back the House.
Right.
And that it was a dead heat for the presidential election. I think it's not a dead heat presidential election. I think Trump is going to win outside the margin of fraud in all the key swing states. I think he's going to sweep the swing states.
That's going to cost me a fortune.
Yeah. Oh, wow. You bet against that?
No, I told everyone at the meetup I was going to buy them all drinks for every Battleground stage. And now I have to take out short-term loans just to cover my nut down there in Boca Raton with Viva.
Yeah.
Because you're saying that he's going to sweep the Battleground states.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that some of these won't be close. I think Georgia won't be that close. North Carolina won't be that close. Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. I think the closest states are actually going to be Maine, New Hampshire, Minnesota, Virginia, New Mexico. I think those are going to be more likely to be the closest states than the ones everyone has in the betting markets. And then I think in the Senate,
is that why Trump's coming to Richmond? I heard he's coming to Richmond next week.
And Laura Trump's coming to Virginia. They're doing different events in Virginia. The Youngkin was smart, tried to get rid of some people that are not citizens from the voter rolls. Democrats took the bait and sued him. Got a Democratic judge to issue an injunction today.
All
that does is promote that story for the next week in Virginia.
That's
you're
nice.
an idiot if you're a Democrat to have gone that route. I mean, it's just not. I mean, none of those people are going to be dumb enough to vote when they've already been flagged. These are people who reported themselves and said I shouldn't be on the voter rolls. So this was incompetency times 10 by the Democratic Party. So but yeah, I think that's where it's going to be close. I think there'll be big House seats. I think Republicans are going to add seats, not lose seats. In the House,
in the House, how many seats?
I would say the median. Where is it? At 221 currently, Republicans.
Yeah.
So I think there's a fair chance they break 230.
How come the same 52 to 56 in the Senate?
Yeah. So I think it's going to be closer to 56 and 52. So Michigan's trending Republican. Wisconsin's trending Republican. If Trump wins by 3 or more in any state where there's a contested Senate race, I think he carries the Senate candidate across with him. I think that's going to happen in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Arizona. So that gives them 4 seats plus Montana and West Virginia. So, that makes it, add 6 seats to the equation. And then the only question really is Nevada. And I wouldn't rule out it being at least more competitive than expected in terms of margin of victory. You can bet on these in different places. But I don't think Minnesota will be quite the blowout they're anticipating. I think Virginia Senate race won't be the blowout that they're predicting.
So Huncal has a chance?
Yeah, I think it'll be competitive. I don't think he can get across the line, probably loses by 5 or 6, but it's not going to be the double-digit loss everybody's
Is it single-digit for Trump in New York, Robert?
It depends on the poll. So it's been up and down. The issue, so some polls have shown.
Can you bet that bet? Or?
Oh, yeah, you can bet the margin of victory.
Right. Okay.
In the presidential election in every single state.
Right.
And to give people an example, if last presidency, you could only bet a few of the states, but we cashed huge if people took the bets that I put out. Because Ohio margin of victory, Iowa margin of victory, Texas margin of victory, Florida margin of victory, cash. It was all underdogs. People forget it was 11-1 in 2020, a few days before Election Day, for Trump to win by 2 or more in Florida. 11-1.
Wow.
I mean, it was 5-1.
What was it by 5? How much did he win by 5?
About 3.5.
Oh, 3.5. Okay. Yeah.
But in Florida, that's kind of a safe number at that level. The so same with the Senate. You can bet on the margin of victory in a bunch of Senate races. And I basically think you can bet on a bunch of House races. You can bet on some cases, even the margin of victory in those cases, depending on the betting market. The Kalshi getting legalized changed the betting markets and it made it accessible to everybody in the U.S. That in turn, Interactive Brokers opened up a bunch of accounts in the U.S. That in turn influenced Polymarket. So what happened was you started getting honest information from the betting markets. And honest information was Trump should be doing much better than what all the modelers were saying. The modelers were saying Harris. The bettors were saying no. The American bettors, once they could actually bet, were saying Trump. And that's what drove the media nuts. Wall Street Journal even did a hit piece saying somehow Polymarket was being manipulated. Suddenly, it's like,
oh, really? I didn't know that. They did a hit piece on Polymarket?
Yeah, saying that it was subject to manipulation by this French guy, and and he had a bunch of the people. Oh, Polymarket's owned by Peter Thiel, and he's part of the Elon Musk conspiracy.
Which doesn't make sense. Yeah, they're trying to say that it's being rigged. If people are betting, they usually bet to win. Last time I checked, they don't say, "Oh, let me throw some bet money."
They bet into it. Democrats have historically tried to rig it, and they could only do so by limited liquidity in the markets.
Wow.
They would deliberately put a big bet in to try to make Harris look better, or Biden in the past, or Brexit in the past, depending on the circumstances. And knowing they could, they wouldn't take much of a hit because they could sell out of their position. And so that's who really did it. But once you have this much liquidity, it's almost impossible to manipulate anymore. It's very hard to rig. So consequently, you started seeing honest odds. And it's the reason why people should have asked, why is the Biden administration spending all this efforts to prohibit people from betting on the U.S. election? Only president to do that, because he didn't want people to know, didn't want the Americans to know what honest betting markets would look like, because it would shake the narrative and say, all the modelers are wrong. The ordinary, this showed up in Brexit, by the way.
Wow.
Working class people were overwhelmingly voting for Brexit, betting on Brexit.
Wow.
And that was one of the signs to me. I was like, oh, that means Brexit's going to pass, despite everybody saying it had no chance.
All right. Let me ask you this. Let's just play this out fantasy-wise in a dystopian HBO miniseries. He wins the election, let's say, on November 5th, November 6th, whatever we find out. The rioting begins all across the country, the violence, the rioting, BLM, whatever happens, right?
Yeah, Al Gonzalez on this point, Mark, wrote in, sources are saying NYPD is canceling all leave on election night and days after leftist riots and vandalism expected. Fire department also on alert, possibly other cities.
Yeah, no, it's going to be national. So, okay, let's just play this out, Robert. You've got a situation now where you've got a lame duck president, a lame duck vice president. You've got looting and rioting and flames across the country in various cities in protest to Hitler taking power, to a fascist taking power. They allow this to happen like they did with the BLM rioting. I don't know if they're going to bail people out of jail, but I'm sure they will. This is going to go on through the whole month of November. What happens, in your humble opinion, on November 26th?
You mean the 6th?
No, November 26th, the sentencing.
The sentencing in New York.
Oh, I got you. I think the judge grants the mistrial.
He's going to grant a mistrial?
That's what I think he does.
Okay. I didn't see that.
He's going to play Pontius Pilate on that thing.
Really? Okay. All right.
Mark, I'm kind of wondering, too. I was thinking about this a little bit more, and I want to run it by Barnes, too. Sure. On the rioting, the looting, and people, obviously, if Trump wins, hope he does, I'm wondering if it won't be as bad as we think, because hold on, let me finish. Unlike 2016, which was a complete shock, literally the day of, New York Times, I think, said 80%, 90%. It was guaranteed. Hillary was not only going to win, she was going to sweep it and bomb them. We're going through 2 weeks now of all signs saying she's losing it. Trump is surging. Trump is surging. Will that not help temp it down a little bit in the fact that, well, we've been hearing he's going to win now for 2 weeks every single day. If he does, yes, they're going to be pissed, but maybe it won't be quite as intense. I don't know. I just wanted to ask your opinion on that.
Yeah. By the way, for the Rekieta trolls in the chat, you got to pay the toll to troll. So you hate Rekieta, I'll answer your question as long as you give these guys some actual cash.
Oh, I like
in
that.
honor.
I don't even know what's going on with this whole storyline over there. But
And that's in honor of Nick Rekieta, because he self-anointed himself the great grifter of a king. So if you want to chat about Nick, that's how you got to do it. Otherwise, you're just a lame-o hanging out in your basement with the crowd that likes to be on that troll board with pedos. But to your precise question, I don't think it's going to be as bad. And the reason is twofold. One, they've lost the intensity amongst younger voters. Your Antifa types, they've lost the intensity in terms of hating Trump. And then the second problem is where all those people are organized right now. They're organized around Palestine. So that they weren't able to re-guide. That's where they needed to do something on Israel. If Biden was still in there, he would have got something done. He would have got something done in Europe. He would have done something dramatic on the border, like have a bunch of army, whatever. Because they decided to screw old Joe without kicking him out because he wasn't going. They were going to have to literally kill him, which maybe they tried to do with the whole Vegas thing. I still wonder.
Yeah. What happened in Vegas? What was that in Vegas?
I wonder if 20 years from now we'll find out that their real message to Biden when he wasn't getting the message about stepping down was to try to kill him in Vegas. Yeah. But like not actually kill him, but make him think he was dying. Yeah. And the message being, you can either step back now or you can go out in a box next week. Which do you want? And if you know Biden would take it, even if they didn't intend the message that way, he would take it that way because that's how he operates.
Getting back to civil unrest for a brief second, you believe that the administration will not fan the flames of civil unrest, despite what's that?
Not Biden, but Biden doesn't. Biden wants to be able to celebrate privately. That was the joke at the Al Smith thing. Yeah. That the group of Democrats that are secretly backing Trump. Turns out it's the Biden family.
That's funny.
That's it's an open. How many times has he sabotaged during the last 2 weeks? Mm-hmm.
The MAGA hat, starting with the MAGA hat, right?
Yeah, start with the MAGA hat. Oh, that was just a joke. Joe knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. Yes, Joe's partially dementia, no doubt about that. But Joe's LBJ, but retarded. Imagine if
he's a retarded LBJ, is what you're saying.
Absolutely, LBJ, but retarded.
Well, his LBJ taking out Jumbo, the version for Biden is sniffing hair.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You think about it, there's like multiple levels of this. Think of LBJ as like a crime lord.
Yeah, and I do, which I do.
As your local captain, right?
Okay.
Your local precinct captain.
Okay.
Your neighborhood captain.
Out of Delaware. Okay. Or Scranton Joe out of Scranton. He ran.
Yeah, Scranton Joe. He even thinks that way. And he's the idiot. You got to help man.
Yeah, I'm Scranton Joe. See? I'm Scranton Joe.
Exactly. But he has a certain savviness to him.
Right. So he's got underlords. He's got some family capos. He's got his brother in the crime family. I think his sister or daughter is in the crime family. Obviously, the son, Fredo, in this case, Hunter Biden Fredo, is in the crime family.
And I think he beats Trump to the punch about Hunter. I think he pardons both Trump and his own family at the same time.
I like that. Well, what if Trump pardons Biden and Hunter Biden at the same time?
I can see him doing it.
He would if he had. Yeah. But I think Joe says, "Hey, we need to get past all this politics."
Right.
Trump said, "I like Joe now." He's even said it. Yeah. I like him now.
And he keeps. He's hitting Joe with the man. I can't believe they stole it from you. Look, that must really drive you crazy. How they disrespect you. How they don't like you. It was like his great letter to Mark Cuban. No wonder Mark Cuban still hates him. Did you see that letter?
Yeah.
That was beautiful. That was masterful.
You're talking about The Apprentice, or
yeah. Who knew when we talked that you're?
What is the deal with Mark Cuban?
I got to say though, Elon Musk had laid it out though when he said that he can't tell Rachel Maddow and Mark Cuban apart.
That's funny.
That was the mic drop.
That's funny. Now, what is Musk's role going to be? Just an outside consultant, Robert?
No. He's going to have at a minimum a kitchen cabinet role. With people like Robert,
right, but not an official cabinet,
an actual administrative, either inside the White House potentially, or even potentially a cabinet position. But I think the thought process is to definitely have he and Vivek's ideas contribute dramatically. And the only question is, what do they have to navigate to the Senate? That's why picking up a lot of Senate seats would really help them. Picking up
for confirmation of cabinet seat, right? But you can have a non-confirmation seat that you can create, right?
kind of, but it gets tricky in terms of power and legitimacy and authority and all of that.
Yeah.
And so it'd be much easier if the thing is they know they can pick off 1 or 2 senators. If it's 54 more, he'll get through whatever nominee he wants.
Barnes, couldn't he pick off the down ballot senators in the battleground states who are running ads saying, "Hey, we work with Trump right now"?
Yeah,
couldn't he maybe pick off a couple of those?
What's happening, by the way.
I think Casey's even doing that now.
Yeah, Casey's doing it. So is Tammy Baldwin.
Baldwin's doing it too. Oh,
that tells you the only reason they would be doing that is if Harris is dead in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. There's zero chance they would do that if there was any chance in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. So what you may see down ballot shift over the next 10 days. You may see a bunch of Democrats in the House saying, "Yeah, Trump's going to win. Check him with us Democrats in the House." That may be because they were so overconfident in their surveys. But Axios has a story about it today. All of a sudden, they're leaking out everywhere because the reason why the leaks come out is all the Democratic political consultants don't want to get blamed.
Well, the finger pointing begins in every loss of a presidential race, right, Robert? At the end, there's finger pointing,
especially with this professional political class.
Yeah. Now, before you go, tell me about the 3 political assassinations that nobody talks about any longer. You've got 3 now. You've got the debacle at Coachella. You've got Matthew Crooks, and then you got the other guy that disappeared off the face of the earth.
Well, one of the people that got shot at the first one had reached out to me for potential representation. And I was considering it.
Oh, wow.
You really could use that process if they were interested in finding out the truth. That was their focal point.
Yeah.
Of using the legal process to, you could sue the estate of the family.
Yeah.
And dig into and try to get real access to those governmental records they're sitting on.
You're talking about the Matthew Crooks family.
The Matthew Crooks case, yes.
Right.
I mean, all these people feel like cutouts.
I know. That's what I think. I mean, they've been cut out of the news media.
That they planned on covering. I think they planned originally to blame Iran. They didn't think that kid would get shot. They didn't think anyone would see him. And then, because remember, 3 days before, they'd arrested somebody in Philadelphia for conspiring with Iran to kill the president.
A Pakistani,
kill President Trump.
I think it was a Pakistani who had been to Iran recently.
Yeah, everything about it smells set up. And
questions are here too. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that they're going to carry. But here's the thing. There's so much theater, to be frank, between Iran and Israel. It's really hard to tell what's real and what isn't. Iran's like, we bombed the hell out of him. And then it's like, one thing fell through.
Well, one thing that was real was the tunnel situation that he had with the millions of dollars in that safe. That operation underneath the ground was something out of James Bond, for Christ's sake. So Thunderball or something.
Unsophisticated still Hezbollah and these other people are.
Right. I mean, there was a lot of cash down there, Robert. There was a lot of,
Oh, no doubt. We'll see if anything sort of escalates on that side. But there's no question. I don't know if we'll ever get real answers about that. But Trump is committed to complete declassification of all Kennedy records and all kinds.
Well, I'd like to get on that committee. How do I volunteer for that work?
Harris is in Texas to help with the abortion referendum, raise some funds, elevate abortion on the national stage. That's what she's in Texas for.
Yeah.
Do you think Cruz is going to pull it out with no problem?
Cruz, that's not going to be close.
Okay.
Cruz is going to be winning by 8 or more.
Where does Harris go? Does she run for governor of California like Nixon did? Like they said that about Nixon too in 1962.
Well, she's not Nixon, for God's sake.
Yeah, I know she's not.
No, I mean, Nixon was a smart dude.
She's going to cash in.
Yeah.
I mean, the husband's cashed in a little bit over the years. She's going to cash in she won't be able to be as successful as Obama, but she plans on making lots of money and living on a vacation lifestyle.
Okay.
I think Kamala is a dumbed down Michelle Obama. So that's
okay. Okay.
Cash in.
Does she really?
Hold on.
I'm curious about that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, using what you're saying, Barnes, I kind of sometimes wonder with the wine mom and all that. Like, does she even really want it that badly?
No. She likes the recognition. Someone put it. She wants the office of the presidency, but not to be president. And that's precisely correct.
She's indecisive. That seems to be her main character flaw.
Ego insecurity. It's about somebody whose mother eviscerated her from the time she was 5.
Ooh, I didn't think about that. The eviscerating scientific brainiac Indian mother. That they could be harsh.
Vicious, harsh criticism.
Right. the father got the hell out. He
He's
started
looking
smoking.
for sort of status validation.
Yeah,
You know,
the
Dad
father
rejects
went.
me, Mom rejects me.
Yeah.
No, see, I can be president. You know, without ever developing the skills, because she didn't grow up in a competitive political environment, politically in California. You know, she's run a Willie Brown recommended campaign. That works if you're running in the Bay Area. It doesn't work if you're running nationally. And that's why she had no preparation for this.
How great of a troll was that of Trump at McDonald's regarding her?
Oh, brilliant. Well, the other thing is Trump's good at those events too.
Yeah.
In other words, he did it before, undercover boss.
Yeah.
So like people look at him and he doesn't look like he's out of place.
He looked very comfortable there with
He
the
looks like
apron.
He
was
loves
studying the whole thing. The kid was telling him, "You got to."
No, and he's also like, my hands aren't touching the fry, because he's such a germaphobe. He was just like loving the mechanism of it. I mean, he genuinely loves McDonald's. He famously, buys
and the number
that.
one group that said they had a more positive view of him afterwards were Gen Xers. I'm sorry, not Gen Zers.
Gen
Zers.
Zers.
Because I mean, they said, "Oh, this guy's relatable. He's not the caricature of the this oligarch billionaire from a comic. He's the guy that gets excited to serve fries at McDonald's. And seemed truly enthusiastic about it.
Well, we had
out of the 1950s.
we had Yasiel Puig on the Dodgers, and he went into a local McDonald's and did the same thing on his own. And the response was the same. He was in the window. People were freaking out. It was a crazy thing that he did. And you saw the same thing with Trump. Brilliant idea, trolling her. Now, did she actually work there, or did she make it up?
About 90% chance, no.
Yeah.
I mean, and that wouldn't have been, that would be insulting to her mother.
Yeah. Oh,
There's
that's
a certain
good point.
kind of work you do, but not that kind of work.
Well, also, Mark, they could come up with one person who would say, yeah, I worked there. I was the cashier.
How about the manager? The manager.
She's not that old. The people are living. There's people in the shop. Somebody would say, oh, yeah, I worked with the future vice president of the United States. I mean, come on.
I agree.
There's no way. Barnes, I'm trying to get through super chats while we're doing this stuff too. Rasmussen saw Hitler bounce for Dems. Do people believe this, or is it response bias?
Oh, I think they're recognizing that as a response bias. That's why they're calling it that.
All right. Well, this is a $50 super chat. Thank you very much. Question: what's up with Tucker Carlson interviewing Amaryllis Fox?
Hey, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He can interview his own dad. Maybe they know each other and work together.
Were you surprised that that's how Putin started out with Tucker?
With the about his dad?
About the CIA connections?
Yeah, no, that was funny. Of course, that was really funny. He was trolling Tucker.
He was, right?
He was trolling Tucker. I mean, we did an episode on his dad. His dad's the most fascinating guy in the 20th century. His father is brilliant.
You know, his dad did I didn't know his dad was connected until the documentary on the trans lady.
Oh, that was crazy. Yeah.
And it was like, all of a sudden they're like, it's like, Carlson? Is that Tucker Carlson? He was the one who outed the man turned woman.
Yeah.
Bogus
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I had no idea about his whole backstory.
Oh, the backstory is very interesting, Robert. Very interesting.
Quick question.
I've always said 319, but 312 is the median. If I was a bookmaker, I'd put 50-50 odds at 312, 40% chance of 319 or higher.
Do you think it's going to keep going on this trajectory? And I guess that's where I'm kind of wondering. It's like, it seems like he's surging continuously and she's just slumping. Could he wind up
reverting to the mean? And that was my view. Was they just created a fake news story around Harris to momentarily buy some time.
Did she get an Obama bounce out of this week, or?
The problem was always the fundamentals are bad. Economy sucks. Immigration's a disaster. Crime is spiking. Chaos is around you everywhere. And we're at risk of world war. There's no scenario which people feel that way that the incumbent parties want.
Right. How about the scenario where she's paying these celebrities to appear, giving this fat woman, Lizzo, $2.3 million to make an appearance in Detroit? I'm assuming that Spike Lee got a check. So all of these people, I presume now, because of Lizzo, they all got a check. Samuel L. Jackson didn't show up for his health. That guy wouldn't go to the grocery store unless they paid him.
Some of the people, all they had to do was, tell them they got the Diddy tapes and get him to show up to endorse Harris.
Who put the hammer on Diddy that had federal power to pick up a phone and come down hard on Diddy? Who had that power?
Well, my view is he tried to extort the wrong people. and they decided we want those files, not you, and we're going to teach you a lesson for extorting your own people. That's those cats. They always think they can go a little bit bigger. They're so accustomed to, they don't realize they're working for them, not the other way around.
But why would Diddy need the money?
It probably wasn't money driven. It was probably something else driven, that he was some sort of power, some sort of deal, whatever it was.
Interesting
is my best guess.
I have a feeling that Kamala Harris was involved.
Oh, I mean that wouldn't be a surprise.
Okay.
I mean you can't rule that out.
No, on behalf of celebrities,
right.
In other words, who were donating money to her. Mm-hmm. I believe a caveat was put in there by numerous Hollywood celebs saying you got to deal with this Diddy. Yeah.
But like, why would they be? The reason why I think Diddy did something to rattle the cage, to elevate to criminal prosecution rather than just straight people negotiating with him, is he upset somebody, so they felt that he needed to be put on ice.
Right.
Here's a question for you, Barnes. Fifth Circuit just ruled that ballots have to be received by election day to count. Does it apply to the whole country?
I don't know, but we'll review that case and discuss it on Sunday, because I haven't.
The fifth is out of Georgia, Robert? Is the fifth Atlanta?
Texas.
Oh, Texas. I'm sorry.
It's probably out of Texas.
Oh,
yeah.
Maybe Louisiana.
Okay. Place that is probably okay anyway.
If the Dems ever won Texas, would they be in power for the rest of our lives?
If they understood that that not all Mexican Americans are illegal immigrants, they probably would be in that position.
Interesting.
Problem is that's cowboy culture. That's a conservative culture. If you're in East LA, that's not a. And to be frank about it, her being a her isn't going to help her with some of those folks.
Oh no, that's definitely true from what I've heard. Now let me ask you something. Did they make a mistake by throwing their lot in these Latinos who happen to be Catholic?
I think
the Democratic Party. I mean, did they make a supreme blunder by putting themselves in bed with a group of really religious Catholics and family-driven minority group of Latinos?
And if you'd study them, their heritage, this is a very populist-leaning constituency. It's not an identity-driven constituency,
right?
And that they always miscalculate, just like they're figuring out with young black men currently.
This young black men phenomenon. I mean, I saw Charlemagne the God I was talking about with Anderson Cooper. This guy was infuriated trying to salvage this campaign for Harris.
He doesn't know which way he's going, because half the time he's against her, half he's for. I know. I want to go back to the Catholic question though, because
go ahead.
Do you think the Al Smith dinner did harm her because there's so many Catholics in the battleground states?
She was already losing them. So, I mean, the problem was Biden momentarily got those people back because he's Scranton Joe. Not all of them, but he got enough of them back to squeeze.
And Catholic.
Yes, white non-Hispanic Catholics.
Yeah.
Before the Al Smith thing, she was getting crushed amongst white non-Hispanic Catholics. That's why, like the New York Times poll today, she's doing below average Midwest. The only question is, if she'd appeared, could she have salvaged something? Does anyone think that?
Okay. Why does she wake up at 1 o'clock? Why is she doing one event a day, Robert? Have they given up? Have they given up?
Because she's bad under public.
Because every time people see her, she does worse. It's it's like put her back in the basement.
So much. And that's the problem. That's the reason why I thought they would never replace Biden, because of one, then Biden will sabotage the campaign through the fall, and two, and you won't have the power of the president to move things your way. But two, Harris is terrible.
That's why I thought it was going to be Newsom.
Well, you know how I think they won. They wanted The Rock. I think Obama wanted The Rock. Obama wanted to bring in a celebrity from totally outside of politics that could challenge Trump in charisma. And The Rock thinks he's going to be a future.
Well,
president.
tell me the field in 2028. Then you tell me Newsom's not going to run, or I mean,
2020 will be very competitive. You'll have Newsom, you'll have Whitmer, you'll have Shapiro. You'll have Buttigieg. You know what's interesting about all four of those? They're some of the nastiest people in all of politics.
Okay, what about Cuomo? Is he dead politically?
No, he can come back. He's Cuomo.
I know.
You remember Mario's campaign for mayor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Vote for Cuomo, not the homo.
Yeah.
Cuomo's have a way of coming back.
Yeah.
Well, look at Chris, even my brother. By the way, can we talk about Alan Lichtman?
What's the deal with this guy? What's the deal with this guy?
Yeah.
Why is he so popular?
He came up with what are really just sort of obvious fundamentals.
13.
In other words, people vote on whether or not they feel safe and prosperous. That's that simple. It's never been too complicated in American political history. Sometimes it's what you could call a neutral electoral environment. In other words, they don't think either candidate gives them a big boost on either safety or prosperity. That's when cultural issues, identity issues, pandemic issues, whatever it is, can come in and dominate instead. But if people, for any reason, don't feel either safe or prosperous or both, the incumbent party loses.
Yeah.
And that has been the case forever. All Lichtman did was take those two principles and somehow multiply them into 13 things, and which was always preposterous. And so if you would just simplify, streamline, and take an objective analysis, what all he was saying was, if it turns out the incumbent administration has a bad economy and everybody thinks they're not safe, they tend to lose. Yeah. Big
well,
shock.
that metric, wrong direction of the country, seems to be pretty important too, right?
Because it's all related, and it'll relate to the economy and prosperity, to economy and safety. So, I mean, the only analogous in terms of economic news, and you can look at Michigan consumer sentiment, Gallup economic confidence. There's a range of metrics you can use for voter opinion on this. The only time it's been this bad is 2008, 1992. I mean, that's how bad it is. I mean, and what is this? And instead media keeps gaslighting everybody. Hey, the economy's great, stock market's great, employment's great, labor market's great. And all it does is insult the hell out of these people.
Because everybody goes to the grocery store the next day saying, how's this great economy working?
And all net
jobs. It's so weird. I went into the store, the little package of Oscar Mayer. It's got like turkey in there. It's just in a little hard package. $11 in Smart and Final to get this little package of sliced turkey from Oscar Mayer. I couldn't believe what I was looking at. Talk about sticker shock.
But none of the elites know that because they don't go to grocery stores.
Right.
They have maids for that.
Right.
So, I mean, it's part of their reality. And so that disconnect. And then, of course, do people feel safe in terms of domestically, in terms of that's usually crime, a sense of chaos, and globally risk of war. That's at one of the highest rates it's been at.
Well, look how Trump was vindicated by those FBI statistics, Robert.
Oh, yeah. Well, everybody knew it. Everybody
knew it.
I've run into people that from LA, San Francisco, other parts of the country.
Yeah.
And they're like, crime has gone sky high. I mean, you got Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks complaining about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the pretending that crime was not up was just idiotic. It was like pretending they're not eating the cats and the dogs.
Oh, the poor cats and dogs.
That's
so sad.
20 years from now, they will still remember.
You know what organization was the quietest during that whole debacle? PETA. Yeah.
Well,
not a peep out of PETA.
PETA did a great mocking of P. Diddy and PETA in the same show about get out the vote, with P. Diddy going around killing people if they didn't get out the vote.
Yeah.
And PETA, turns out they really, really love the animals. That was great.
We got some rumble rants that came in. One of the most recent, and then I'll go back, but somebody saying X is saying Israel just bombed Tehran. Don't know if it's true.
Well, like Robert said, we don't know. It's called the fog of war, right, Robert?
Well, it also depends on scale, right? In other words, how big Israel's going to claim it's a big deal. Is it actually a big deal? Does Iran really want to escalate at the moment? Probably not. Iran's not in a position to get into a direct war with Israel. So
whatever position they're in, they got 90 days left to deal with it.
To a degree,
because of the election.
Right, correct.
I think fewer than that, Mark. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think if Trump is president-elect, then everything is going to be on, I wouldn't be surprised if Hamas releases hostages at that point.
Well, if you read the last will and testament of Shamir there, he said, don't release the hostages. That's the last thing we got going for us. And then he wrote, like Hitler did, death to the Jews, have a nice night at the end, but that goes with the territory.
Yeah. All right, big clit energons.
What?
Yeah, I don't write these names. After Trump did McDonald's, Kamala is going to do Five Guys for 15 minutes.
That's funny.
Finboy Slick said, rudely shilling for vivabarnes.locals.com, where you find all the best memes.
That's great.
Viva DeVito and Barnes Lippard.
He's one of the great meme makers on our board. He makes all these awesome memes.
Okay. Well, hey, shill away. See, he pays to shill. I like that.
Pays to shill.
And Drum 12. Greetings again from Georgia. Love your show. What do we have to do to get Barnes to join us in Boca and Viva too? Viva's supposed to be joining
Viva's
us.
coming over. He heard a free meal. He's bringing his whole family, Robert.
That's right.
He's bringing that crippled dog to eat at our thing.
He's not. I mean, he's not far away from you, right there.
I know. He's a mile away. He's a mile away.
There might have been strategy involved. Maybe a little bit of strategy here.
I'm going over there for dinner myself. I'm going to eat them at a house at home.
It's a nice little place there.
It's a great place. She cooks, and it's great. I mean,
it's amazing.
Kids are all nice.
She makes like brontosaurus burgers. This woman, I mean, she makes big meals.
Well, in fairness, David is incredible too.
Good cook.
Yeah, he's on the grill. But check this out. When we were there last time, we went to the Trump Doral thing. Okay, so he was grilling meats. We went by the butcher. He's grilling meats and cutting a video on his iPhone while he's grilling, and he actually put it out for publication. The dude is like a walking production machine. It's
the
insane.
Kid, he just puts a GoPro on his kid's head and sends him out into the world now. He doesn't even bother going outside.
Well, as he should. Freddie65 said Newsmax confirms the attack.
Wow.
And then what about McConnell attack on MAGA? I can't wait till
Mitch McConnell?
Yeah, it was Mitch McConnell. I mean, he just proved that he's going to be persona non grata.
Get rid of this fucking guy. Is there a place where they could go, like an island retreat for him and Romney and all these other guys?
Put him out with
what is Liz Cheney's future? Robert, what is Liz Cheney going to do with the rest of her life?
Just draft him and send him to the front lines of Ukraine. They love.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Wow.
All right. Dick Dickerson gave 20 America's Untold Stories memberships. Thank you, Dick.
How quickly is that war going to end when Trump gets into power?
Within 3 months.
Yeah.
Olympic Jeff gifted 10 America's Untold Stories memberships. Thank you very much, Jeff. David March, who we met in Youngstown, he's also coming to Boca. Trump just dropped an ad of a 94-year-old Holocaust survivor denouncing Kamala.
Yeah, that was
I don't even know that was an ad. I think that dude was giving interviews, period. You know who else is pissed off about the Hitler is Michael Rappaport. Just released a 3-minute thing. He's like, you could call him anything you want, but stop calling him Hitler, son of a... And just, typical profanity.
Dude, is he a nut, that fucker Rappaport? I mean, I remember him from New York. I mean, he was nuts back then.
He is nuts, but he's very pro-Israel. And
he was good in Copland and good in Truman.
Yeah, and he was also good Justified.
I think.
Well, he did a one-man show. He wanted me to produce. He did a one-man show. I had produced Mambo Mouth with Leguizamo, who has turned out to be Che Guevara now. So that's a weird relationship. But there were other people that wanted one-man shows produced. Dennis Leary asked me to produce his another great one-man show. Dennis Leary. If anybody ever sees that on video.
One of my favorite Dennis Leary movies is The Ref, which I
consider The Ref is great.
Oh, that is so great. Yeah, Kevin Spacey's even in that.
Yes, he is.
Kevin Spacey.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Kevin Spacey's got some side habits, but heck, he's a good actor.
What do I care what he does on the side?
He was found not guilty on everything.
In 5 seconds, Robert, right?
That's true. It makes you wonder about those stories.
Also, no civil penalty. So,
well, you had one with Don Lemon. You know the story.
Yeah, no, Don Lemon was. Well, I can't say whether he
Don Lemon.
Not saying there was an agreement or not, or a settlement or not, because I couldn't.
Yeah, you can't say, but I can. Well, nobody. I have no restriction.
Exactly.
Or knowledge.
I don't know anything.
It's about safety, prosperity. How does Kamala get 46+% of the vote?
The same way John McCain did. I mean, that's the flip side of that. I mean, the Democrats would have asked, how in the world did, in the middle of a disastrous war and a sunk economy, did Republicans get within 8 points of Barack Obama? So we live in an era where there's hard lines. There's about 45% of the country on both sides in a budget.
Right.
Robert, is it still worth putting in all the political bets from SportsFix now?
Oh, yes. And I put what it's okay to, and there's still all of those markets are pretty much still within the range of recommended bets. I mean, if you were there a year and a half ago, you would have had Trump at 10%. So you could have cashed out with 6%, 650% rate of return and profit right now in Polymarket if you wanted. Or you could just hold on because it's going to be 10-1 in about 10 days.
Right, this is from earlier. Kay, it's my birthday and love spending it with y'all, which I could be in Florida. If y'all go to Coeur d'Alene, I will buy Mark a gooey something at the resort. He can help me because I've got to say this. I know we've got the rule about places, but I want to go to Coeur d'Alene.
I would go there. I would go. I always wanted to go there anyway.
Beautiful place.
Idaho. I don't know what
Northwest.
What's a gooey thing. I don't know if I should accept that, Robert. A gooey something or other.
I think resort. It's a picture or something, but yeah.
And yeah, that could be dangerous.
That could be our Northwest appearance.
Apparently, it's a drug counselor on top of that. Interesting.
Maybe. Scott Bimbo, what about this cat Caldwell, struck by lightning, but finished by winning the game? Hammerin Herman gave me the side eye. This is baseball talk, I think.
He's taking Hammerin Harmon. I don't even know if that's his nickname. It was Hammerin Henry for Henry Aaron, but I've never heard Hammerin Harmon, but it could be a local nickname for Harmon Killebrew. Okay. Yeah, that's weird.
Sean Lucan with 20 America's Untold Stories memberships. Thank you. I haven't heard about this. It's an essay accusation against Tim Walz. Supposedly the Hodge twins are reporting it. There's another really sketch account that's gone from X now that was reporting with AI generated video about Walz. So I'm afraid to touch anything on this.
Okay, let me ask you this. 30 trips to China. Forget about the other crap. 30 trips to China, showering him with gifts. What is the deal here? Other than buying influence of someone back in the day, this is a long planned out trip.
Well, it's his ideological inclination.
Yeah.
I mean, ask yourself who dreams to be a school teacher of that type. You know, I mean, either he's got a little Sandusky in him or he's got a little commie in him.
Or maybe he'd like to put a little Sandusky into others.
Hold on. Speaking of Sandusky, did you hold on? He came up in the news again that he could not.
Sandusky did?
Yeah, no, that he could not have done some things because there was something that was.
There were some allegations that were likely false.
Okay,
but there were plenty that were probably definitely true.
Right.
There's a lot of really wrong jokes, but I'll save those.
Right.
Oh, probably a good idea. Al Gonzalez.
That was a great delay.
A mixed testicle bag is what you're saying.
Yes.
Al Gonzalez, hearing Trump rally in Madison Square Garden has new NYPD on edge. Big concern for Trump safety. And they don't trust Secret Service at all. On-site deployment issue. Well, and I think they're not helping because they're drawing the parallels to the Nazi 1939 Madison Square Garden rally. And I think it's Hillary that's starting all that up.
Yeah, so, no doubt. But I'm not as concerned about Madison Square. Madison Square Garden tends to be a very secure facility at multiple levels. It's not too hard to secure that facility.
And the New York cops do know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, they do.
Montine McCord, I think Diageo took him down for screwing them in a racism suit. I don't know the background there.
Who's Diageo?
I think that's Diageo. I don't know. Oh yeah, good point. Texas was a Democrat state. Not that long ago.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Ann Richards won in that particular cycle before George W.
It could go back.
But she was she campaigned as a populist style Democrat. What the Yarborough's famous populist Democrat from Texas, whole family, multiple generations of them. That those populists don't exist anymore.
You're talking about Yarborough, the senator from
and then his I think it was grandson, nephew. There were several that would become later statewide held.
There was Don Yarborough too.
He once described watching the political parties rise to power was like watching a monkey climb a tree. Didn't get any prettier.
Well, he also said that gunfire smoke does not go from the building down, it goes from the ground up. And he talking about smelling the rifle fire during November 22nd, 1963, sitting next to his arch nemesis, LBJ.
Yeah. I mean, LBJ wanted Yarborough whacked that day.
Oh, yeah. But,
they flipped him on him. And
they flipped him. Yeah.
Made him sacrifice.
Well, at least a pincushion of bullets. I mean, luckily Connolly was a big guy, able to absorb a couple. But yeah, that's a big target with a big Stetson.
All right, Rumble rant from Broad D. Satva. What I miss? Meet up in Boca? Yes. On election night, we will be having a meetup.
There's a funny thing about the meetup. Various people are dropping in, Robert, and if you get the time, it'd be great. But one of the best is going to be Stein, Alex Stein, 99, who's going to be at Kamala headquarters. He's going to drop in on us from his adventures at her campaign headquarters, which is going to be freaking great.
Yeah, especially with him, he will make it funny.
He will make it fun. He will make it fun.
But anyway, those who want to check this out, I mean, it's doing great. Looking for it, hanging out. It's going to be a live show.
Yeah, help Groubert go break. Help Groubert go broke by sweeping the battleground states. Thanks.
Exactly.
Robert. Thank you.
Exactly. And by the way, Mark, you are going broke because the tickets are going fast. And,
oh my God, I'm finished.
So
I'm finished.
Yeah, we're getting into the many dozens of tickets that are being sold. So I look forward to that.
A weekly count of votes. It'll take
at the rate we're going, you might be able to plead that it would be illegal for you to buy that number of drinks.
You know what? I bet you there's a Florida law I could use to get out of this thing. There must be somewhere. There must be a law in Florida. I'm going to ask DeSantis about it.
Because if Trump sweeps the battleground states, I think it's illegal to buy that many drinks.
You're talking about hundreds of rounds. I mean, dude, I'm finished.
Yeah, you are. Stick a fork in you and turn you over. He's
going to bet on this
talking
game.
to the hotel, bringing bottles of himself, saying, "Here, can I provide the bottle for you, please?"
Well, anyway,
please.
We still recommend you come for the dinner and the entertainment and the live coverage, and it's going to be a lot of fun, one way or the other. So
it's going to be a great amount of fun. We've got people calling in. We got Rich Bears. We got Alex Stein. We've got Dr. Drew. We have Nate the lawyer. We have Nate Hockman, the good Nate Hockman.
How about Viva and his entire Viva's entire gypsy family
are going to be in there eating the meal and getting free drinks from Mark.
Let me tell you something, Robert. The last time we gave him an award, he ate dinner and he ran like he was in the Olympics, and he ran back to his house. He got out of there so fast.
Yeah, well, the first campaign event I ever did was 1992, New Haven, the Democratic campaign headquarters. The woman who won for Congress, whose husband was Stanley Greenberg. I think she's still there. I think Rosa Dolores was still there all these times. But I was like 19, and they had free alcohol everywhere, and I was like, "This is the greatest thing in the world." So I'm just like, boom, boom. I'm totally toasted. So I'm behind all these people on TV, and they keep trying to push me out because I'm like, woo, yelling and screaming out and hollering, drunk as a 19-year-old. Like, who is this kid? And I just, randomly got an invite from somebody at Yale.
Well, I was one was John Kerry. I went through
2004.
Okay, 2004. I'm in West Palm Beach, and I'm answering phones. I'm calling people for John Kerry, and they give me a yellow, which I still have, 2 of them. Brand new yellow firefighters for John Kerry campaign shirt, which I just saw the other day in storage. And the guy says to me, "Can you go pick up these voters in your mother's minivan?" So I pick up 8 to 10 huge black women to take them to the polls in my mother's minivan, and they're demanding that I stop at Vons and CVS so they could go shopping en route to the polls.
Right. Well, that was probably also a wink. Where's the shopping money for?
Oh, you mean the walking around money? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to just leave me off and not give me anything, are you?
Yeah. Well, I didn't give him anything.
Yeah.
Okay. On this one, Jamie Raskin says if Trump wins, Dems will stop him. What if Republicans lose House too?
I don't think they're going to lose the House. I think they're. But the reason what Raskin is doing is he's trying to give people a reason to vote Democrat. They can't get even if they had the House, they're not going to get enough votes to block Trump after all they've done.
To block the certification, which would be kind of ironic.
Right. Yeah. They've
talk about irony. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. They've called it a crime for the last 4 years.
Did that guy fake cancer just to get a hair weave?
Oh, that's brutal. That's brutal. But Raskin's doing that pitch because he needs an excuse for people to still donate and volunteer to Democrats, even if they think Trump's going to win. Right. So you'll see more of it, not less of it, between now and Election Day from Raskin and crew.
Right. Wow.
Barnes, is it too late for
too late to get involved in Polymarket? But Kalshi has a lot of the same markets available. So Kalshi is, but Polymarket's funded by crypto is the way you want to get on Polymarket. Crypto and you may not still be a sponsor. Are you a VPN sponsor of anybody currently?
No, not recently.
We do.
Okay, I say it is useful to have a VPN for those kind of things.
Hey, we're wide open for VPN sponsorships, though, by the way, and I am a big believer in VPN. So,
will Nicole Shanahan run for governor of California?
The question is California salvageable or not?
Good question.
That's the hard part to assess. I think if Trump makes progress, if it's like 22, 23 points, at least moving in that direction.
Yeah.
Maybe she'll. I mean, it's an extremely expensive state.
Yeah.
And she's very pragmatic. She's not going to do it if it's not going to get anywhere. She also has a substantial chance of getting something in the Trump administration.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
By the way, Barnes, I think you ran off all the Nick trolls because there's no money and they're quiet. It's like all of a sudden there's nothing in no money, no chats. I'm very disappointed in that.
What is the status of that case? I haven't been following this thing. What is the?
Yeah, he's going to trial. It looks like.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but here's what normally happens. Drug cases, you challenge everything the government did to get the evidence.
Yep.
The trial court almost always denies it.
Yep.
But the goal is to be strong enough that the government gets rattled and the government gives you a good plea deal before trial.
Right.
And sometimes they'll give you a conditional plea deal where you get to run it up in the appellate food chain. But normally they don't want cases that are making, if there's any sign of weakness from the government or skepticism from the court, then that usually means you got headway. To get. So my assumption, I don't have any inside information on this.
Right.
But my assumption, by the way the government has behaved to date, conceding certain issues, needing extra time for other issues, so on and so forth.
They're dragging their feet, in other words.
Correct. And if they're smart, they'll cut a deal to limit their appellate risk.
Okay.
Because they got away with some stuff that there's a decent chance they lose on appeal, and they don't want. Why run that risk for this case?
Right on.
They already know the cops at total can't trust them, which means you got problems at trial, which means you could blow up other cases, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you get any court to say this cop's a liar, what does it do in every case the cop's ever testified in, which is usually going to be hundreds?
I mean, ask Henry Wade, the DA in Dallas, what happened to hundreds of cases that he framed.
The book behind me, John Grisham, Framed.
Yeah.
It's about some of those stories that they nailed some corrupt cops.
Yeah.
Unwinds hundreds of cases, sometimes
thousands. They
thousands.
unwound Henry Wade's cases going all the way back to Dallas in 1963.
Yep. Was that the Thin Blue Line guy?
Yes.
Yes. Also the Thin Blue at the Errol Morris.
That was a heck of man. Errol Morris can make documentary.
Absolutely.
This question I actually want to ask the reverse of. They're saying Harris campaign is claiming they're hidden Republicans for her. I think there's a lot of hidden Democrats that are saying, yeah, I'm all for Mamala, and quietly going to say, F this bitch.
Well, it's already happening amongst the people that aren't turning out are young black men and young Hispanic women and young non-college white women who are not religious, who identify as moderate to liberal and lean Democratic. So that's your natural Democratic community. And they're saying, I'm just not going to vote this time.
Let me ask something. Is she just an atheist with no religion? I've never heard her talk about Christianity.
Well, she claimed she is a Christian now.
Spiritual period.
Yeah.
She's a Christian now? Right now?
I don't think she's
last week she talked about she went and she prays every day, up to twice a day sometimes. No, she's going for everything right now. It's like a kitchen sink campaign. This is a follow-up saying Diageo was the
the vodka thing he was involved. That's interesting.
What is
that?
This?
That would be classic Diddy to overstep in the wrong place like that.
Okay.
You got to know who you can piss off and who you can't, especially when you're in the blackmail extortion business. But those guys,
who are these two people? Who are these two people they're referring to?
Diageo is a vodka. P. Diddy was involved.
He was a sponsor of it?
No, owner, I think, part owner.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, and promoter, and they got involved some sort of
It's at a Russian mob vodka company or out of Brooklyn?
Well, I tell you, that would be a group.
Just throwing that out there. That out there.
I don't know.
Well, he is in South Brooklyn right now. Unfortunately, he's in a small room.
Well, he better.
Let me ask something, Robert. Why can't his attorneys get bail for him?
Oh, because the government has made clear to the courts not to give it to him. That's why. If the courts were honest, they would grant him bail.
Right, but why is he a flight risk?
He's not, and they know he's not.
I know.
He's in there to get killed.
Right, absolutely. You can't slap an ankle bracelet and take a passport from this guy. Come on.
Right. Yeah, it's obvious what he's in there for.
Right.
Or to coerce him to do something to where they give him a sweetheart deal. And
well, look at Watergate, what Judge Sirica did, giving them all 20 to 30 year sentences until McCord buckled. So it has been done before.
Completely. And they run that scam in the SDNY as bad as anywhere.
Yeah.
Mark, you might like this rumble rant. Wanted to name drop my way into the baseball conversation. My godfather being Bobby Valentine, he being Tommy Lasorda's godson, and Bobby's father-in-law was Ralph Branca, ties to Ebbets Field and MGM.
That is true. Bobby V was Dodger third baseman and then ends up being the manager of the Mets. He then gets ejected from a game, goes in the clubhouse, and comes back with a beard and a wig in disguise, continuing to manage the Mets from the bench while having been ejected from the game, as this guy well knows. Ralph Branca, of course, who threw the famous pitch that was the shot heard around the world, the home run by Bobby Thompson in the Polo Grounds 1951, where the Giants had telescopes in the stands windows, signaling to Bobby Thompson that a fastball was coming from Ralph Branca, the man he's referring to, and the Giants won the pennant. The Giants won the pennant, as was said repeatedly by the announcer, and Willie Mays was on deck, scared to death.
Wow. All right. On that note, we are going to head to locals.
Okay.
We'll talk more about P. Diddy's and baseball
dirty, filthy, sexual, weird crap. We get to locals. You could say anything over there.
That's right. Unstructured.locals.com. There's a link in the description taking you right to this episode over there. And
I can't wait to get over there.
Heading there right now.